Here we go. Okay. Before we get started, I'm going to briefly walk through some of the logistics and business for today's convening. First, you'll notice we are recording this in many different modes, and the recording that we're doing on the GoPro and the iPad will be posted to our website when they're done processing, as well as the Tribal Affairs YouTube channel. For those interested in following the council, ongoing updates, including listening session recordings and the listening session summary documents, are available at the California Truth and Healing Council updates blog at catruthandhealing.com. You can also get updates for events by following the Governor's Office of Tribal Affairs on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Additional details, including meeting dates, agendas, and background information, are available at tribalaffairs.ca.gov/CTHC. Thank you to all who attended yesterday, and we're happy to see you again today. And now I'd like to remind everyone that in joining us here today, you agreed to adhere to the Council's principles for respectful engagement, which I'll walk through briefly in a moment. A copy of the principles is available for your use and review at tribalaffairs.ca.gov/CTHC. Again, these principles were adopted by the Council to make sure that we have a safe space for sharing, for talking through issues, for sharing our histories, no matter how difficult. And we want to make sure that we're not creating a forum or a platform for people to be fighting against each other, fighting against other tribes. This process is really about what the state can do to be accountable to Native people. And so we just want to make sure that we keep this space safe for all who want to join, understanding that some people express themselves differently. If you feel at any time that you need to step out, or you feel that you may be in need of assistance, please find one of our team and we'll help you get some air. In order to create a space where participants feel welcome, respected, and able to speak comfortably, we ask that if you're a participant in a convening with the Council, that you engage in the work of the Council and with others in an open and respectful way. Engage in behaviors that will make others feel welcome. Take care of your emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical well-being, and seek support as you need it. Finally, I'd like to remind attendees that as we work through today's discussions, this process is necessarily open to all Californians. And I see we have a lot of people who are allies from state agencies who are going to be helpful in this space as well. And so we'd love to hear from them too. But we ask that those who are here as allies ensure that they please respect the space and voice of California Native participants, especially elders, in this process. For members of the press in attendance or watching this after the fact, we ask that you engage with this process with deference to the Native experience, and that you commit to obtaining consent and final review from the Native peoples that you hear from today. We don't want this to be an extractive process, and we hope that you'll assist us in creating a safe space that is open, transparent, and welcome to all. So I'm now going to have our governing council members who are present introduce themselves, and if they have any thoughts, anything that they didn't share yesterday that they've been thinking about and would like to share today, please feel free to do that. And then we will introduce our Sikui partner who is present, and then our office will introduce ourselves. We'll then do what we normally do, which is have everyone in the room introduce themselves and share as they like. And then we will break for lunch once we're kind of in that space. So I will start with Councilmember. I'll start with, okay. I'm not gonna,
Open Mikatoish, Yahweh Joan Harper. I'm a member of the council from the northern section, and I'm happy to be here and hear what you have to share.
Mio Yamatoho Latano Gonzalez, and I'm from Rincon. I'm the newest appointee, and I just want to let you know that I listen with my heart, that everything you say is sacred to me. I prayed last night, yesterday was a heavy day, and I prayed this morning coming here. I'd be open. I want to share with you that I I feel your pain, I feel your anger, and I understand where it's coming from. I want to understand better. I don't share outside of this council what I hear, because this is a sacred position to be in. And I thank you all for being here, and I take this very seriously.
Pardon me, but it hurts. I'm Carmen Lucas, Claiming Indian from Laguna Mountain, San Diego, California. I'm happy to be here, and again, it's something you've probably heard before, but I'm going to say it again for the millionth time. If you have not documented your story, please do. It isn't necessarily for the world to see. They've already screwed that up. But it is for your children, your grandchildren, and more importantly, for those who have yet to be born. We must keep our legacy alive, and I thank you. Thank you for being here.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Isaac Bojorquez. I'm Ohlone Costanoan from the Monterey Carmel area. It's an honor to serve on the council, and apologies for trying to turn, but I want to acknowledge everyone in the room. There's so many that are here, as Christina had shared, from state agencies, allies, and from the community. So, and I know that more community will come. It takes a lot of courage to share your experiences, the stories that were entrusted to you. I really want to hone in on that, because so much has been taken away from us as Native people. But we are a resilient people, and our families found ways to hold on to those things that were important to us, whether that was song, whether that was language, our very way of life. And to step into an area such as this and to speak and share those things takes a great deal of courage and bravery. And I ask that you do that you share those things. And for those that watch this recording later, I hope that you will reach out and share your testimony with the council. It will greatly influence the work in which we're doing. We need to hear from our community. If we are truly to heal as one people, we need to come together as one people. So I encourage you to please share your stories, share those legends, as Carmen had shared, our elder here. These are things that need to come to light so that as Native people, we can truly heal. That the agencies, whether they're held by non-Native or Native people, can truly become allies and friends to us and help us when it comes to protecting our sacred sites, our cultures, and our very way of life. We are still here living today, and will continue to live. Truly.
Good morning, everybody. I am Anthony Burris, and I am from Ione Band, the Miwok Indians. I don't have a lot to say. I feel like my role here is more to listen to what you all have to say, but I'll just share that this morning when I was getting ready to drive over here from Braden. I was just thinking about being in Pomo lands. I've been around in these areas before, but I don't think I've ever actually been to one of the rancherias. But one of the memories I have from being a kid, Ione, we have Chase there. I don't know if people here have been to Chase, and we have this the big time there in September every year. So when I was a kid, one of my favorite parts of the big time was when the big hit dances would come in, right? And that was really exciting for me because I wasn't a dancer, but I remember, if I remember correctly, because it was a while ago now, but that was one of the times where I could participate as part of those dances that would happen really late at night, too. That was another exciting thing. I'd stay real late, right, and go see the big hits. We could throw money in and we would dance. Even if you weren't a dancer, that was a time when you could participate. So that's just one of those aspects of the big time that's really burned into my memory from my childhood. I hope I'm remembering that correctly about the money and the dancing. It was some part of that period in the weekend, right? Late at night when the big hits were out there. So I was just thinking about that, thinking about Pomo people, and that's a relationship that we share, right? On those big times and coming together. during those celebrations. So.
Thank you. I'm going to hand it over to our Sikui partner to introduce herself.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see some familiar faces from the last couple days. Thank you all for coming back. My name is Shantae Grillo. I am a citizen of the Island Band of Miwok Indians. Today I'm here representing the California Consortium for Urban Indian Health, or CTHC for short. We help Loretta and Christina with logistics, planning meetings, and contracting healers and mental health practitioners to come and provide you with spiritual and emotional support while you talk through these very heavy topics. Unfortunately today our healing partner was not able to make it. He couldn't get a ride up here, but we did bring some medicine for you all. It's on the table if you would like to take a piece of that to hold for yourselves. And I've been informed that through that curtain back there is like a small green room that the bands usually use. It's supposedly set up real nice with some comfy couches. So if you need a moment to yourself, to collect yourself, feel free to use that space and just take that moment for yourself.
Great. I'm going to choose someone to go last and open our Good morning, everyone. My name is Loretta Miranda. I'm a descendant of the Miranda band of Indians in Southern California and currently serve as Deputy Tribal Affairs Secretary and Special Counsel for the Governor's Office of Tribal Affairs. It's a mouthful. Just really appreciate Middletown Rancheria for hosting us today and for you all to come out today to go through this process with us. And so just really appreciative of both the people of the land and those who traveled to come here. And you'll notice I wear a few different hats during these meetings. I am taking photos throughout as well. If you are not comfortable with me using your photo for social media or for any purposes affiliated with the council, just let me know, and we'll make sure that doesn't happen. And again, just thank you. Thanks, Loretta. Same thing with the filming that's happening, both with our documentary team, which I'll explain real quick before we get started, but also with the video that we're capturing for the website. If there's anything that you feel uncomfortable that you shared, anything that you don't want to be posted on the internet for everybody to see, anything you said that you thought might be misconstrued, please let us know and we can edit that out before it gets posted. We want to make sure that you feel free to share whatever you want to share within this space, but we understand that obviously not everybody can come to these meetings, and so want to make them publicly available and accessible as much as possible. But if there's anything that you share that you want us to stop recording or you want us to edit out, please let us know because we want you to feel safe doing so. That said, you may have noticed there's a lot of really fancy cameras in the room, and some of you are already familiar with this process, but we've got a documentary team with us, following the process, kind of trying to understand better what the history is here, but also how people are grappling with it and what we think we need to do moving forward. So I'll let them introduce themselves in a bit, but really what we wanted to do in getting a documentary team together for this process was really show the world that California Indian people are still here, that we don't look like everybody else, that, you know, my cousin's story isn't my story, the tribe next door to me has a different story, the tribe down south has a different story, but we all have this common history of people doing something to us that wasn't that great. And us still being here as a result of the tenacity, the resilience, the choices that our ancestors made to make sure that we could be here today talking in a circle like this. So really what we wanted to do was show the world that California Indians are still here, that we're not a monolith, and also understand what the world owes California Indian people so that we can really create some positive change for our people moving forward. So I'm going to hand it to Jacob real quick to introduce himself, just so you know who he is, and you get comfortable with him as well.
Hello, I'm Jacob. I'm with documentary film crew you see around you. We, as Christina said, we're here as allies. We're here to be supportive of this process and to try to help communicate the message that you all are sharing. So if we want to work with you, if there's anything you don't want to have as part of the film, please let me know. We're here in support and don't want anything like that to get out. And we hope we can be good allies in this process, and we're here to help.
Thanks, Jacob. Okay, so now we're going to, sorry, what? Dan, you want to say something?
Matzwitzet, my relatives, Dan Zimamuik, Kutsan Mat Ivaik, Kutsan Shimuiz Mata, Shimuz Ipaipa, was a hut na you, Pipaz, Shitamuik, Kunimez, Yavi, Reduts, Kutar, Reduts, Skanav, Square, Hota, Inyats Yavi, Trachad, Kiptanyais, Kitsok, Hota, Mo. My name is Dan Golding. I'm from Kutsan, which is way south, and I'm from the Roadrunner clan. And it's great to see all these different tribes here gathered to share their thoughts and their ideas and things in this setting. And that I'm here with the film crew. I'm here to make a movie with these guys. So thank you.
Thanks, Dan. So now what we're going to do is, in all of these meetings, we introduce who we are to the room so that everybody knows who's in the room. If there's anything you'd like to share that's on your heart. We would also provide testimony right now. We kind of keep it open-ended, and so share whatever you like. There will be time to provide testimony later. We will have some more folks joining us in the afternoon, I think. So if you're more comfortable with, fewer people, this is a nice time to be able to share, get on the record, but also, not have kind of the same kind of pressures. If you want, you can even get up on stage. It looks like we've got a nice setting up here. But really what we want to do is get comfortable with each other and kind of share what's on your heart. So in a very nerve-wracking twist, I'm going to share a little bit today. It occurred to me this morning that we're up in Pomo country. This is the time when now I'm going to get, it's too hard. I'm just going to grab some napkins just in case, but I'll keep talking. So it occurred to me that we are up in Pomo country, and if we don't come back up, this might be the only time that I get to share kind of why I wanted to create this council and structure it this way, and why I thought it was so important for us to tell our stories. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my story and my family's story. It's not the story of Dry Creek. I'm not an elected official, and I'm not authorized to tell that story, but it is a story of Dry Creek because our tribe is made up of 4 families, and my family is one of those families. Again, it's kind of uncomfortable for me, and if anybody wants to jump in and save me from this and not have me tell it, it's fine too. I also want to apologize and also thank the local tribes of this area for the space to be able to share. And I don't want to displace their stories and their history, but I also feel like if I'm going to share, I should share at some point. And I was thinking this morning that it's not totally fair of me to ask you all to share about yourselves and you just kind of like soak it up, but not also share about my family and my history. So I think I'm going to work backwards, and because kind of the story of how this council came to be is a story of me working backwards, and I think my ancestors working forwards, and then meeting in a place that made it feel like it was time to kind of have everybody do this also. So I'm probably gonna just look at the ground most of the time, because if I see people's faces, it's hard for me. So I grew up down in Pasadena, California, and the reason I grew up down there is because my mom grew up down there, for the most part, because her mother was someone who would come over with her family from Rochester, New York. They were, East Coast WASPy family, but were kind of like the rebels of the crew. So they went over by way of Tacoma, Washington, and then came down into Pasadena, where a lot of East Coast families settled. My grandma was a bit of a bleeding heart, and so during World War II, she went all the way up to San Francisco to be a nurse for the World War II Pacific Front. And at the same time, my grandpa came down for the first time off the res from up here in Dry Creek, after having lied about his age so that he could go to the Pacific Front and fight for the United States. That was the first time he had left the res. He was 17, and he came back injured from shrapnel from mines over there. And my grandma met him, and they fell in love. I'm sure there's a lot to that story. And they ended up having 3 children together, moved up to the res for a few years. And when my mom was 2, and I think my grandma was still pregnant with my uncle, my grandpa decided he was done with the res and started making his way up the coast and planting other families, which I think is a story that a lot of us can relate to. So my mom and her brother and sister, well, my grandma, who had kind of been sheltered and raised in Pasadena, she ended up having to walk from the res all the way to Santa Rosa to find public transportation to get back to her mom's house back in Pasadena, and that's where she lived the rest of her life and raised my mom and her siblings. My mom is Eva Leslie Dollar. She's the daughter of Homer Leslie Dollar, who went by Leslie, if anybody can remember back that far and knows people from up here. My uncle's Homer Dollar III. He's up in Crescent City now, and he kind of ran around here for a little while too, so you might remember him. You might remember my cousin, who's also Homer Dollar IV. They all ran around and caused a little bit of trouble, so I don't always talk about them, because if you get the association, then you might, think some things before getting to know me. But they're all alive and well. They've worked through a lot of things. And I was thinking this morning that I don't want to talk too much about what people who are still alive are working through, because my whole family's working through a lot. It's really, I think people are, well, I'll talk about that in a minute, and I don't want to take up too much time or space, but, so my mom ended up, after her mom had taken them back down to LA, her mom worked as a social worker in LA and then brought in a lot of troubled youth. So it was both kind of a raucous environment, but also kind of a hard place, because at the time, Pasadena was still segregated. So you had this, single mother raising 3 brown kids and then bringing in a lot of youth who had issues with substance abuse, gang activity. My uncle ended up befriending one of the neighbors who ended up, I don't know if I should say this, and maybe I'll edit it out later, but who ended up being in the Mongols. My mom had a really, really challenging childhood where they were barely getting by. So she overcame a lot, ended up dropping in and out of school, ended up finally getting, a degree for high school, went straight to work for the county, and then when she was in her 20s, finally decided she's going to go get a college degree at UCLA. Met my dad at some point in that time. She had really long hair, and so she was going to a New Year's party with her roommate, and her nails were still, well, I guess they were hosting the party. We like to host parties, but her nails were still wet, and so like someone helped her get her hair out of her face, and that was my dad. But she always really hated how fetishized Indian people were when she was growing up, because she was down in LA. My aunt kind of leaned into like the whole like being Indian thing and being popular because you're Indian and everyone wants to be Indian. And my mom just like hated it. So she would never tell people she was Indian. And she never told my dad she was Indian until after they were married, because she just didn't want that to be the thing, like that he's gonna marry this like Indian person. And he didn't ask. He's from Texas, so he knew brown people, and he just kind of assumed something or another, but didn't ask. So my mom worked her way through full-time working while she went to college at UCLA. Almost dropped out of that, and then my dad forced her to finish because he's like, why would you do all that work and not get something out of it? And then she ended up working the rest of her career for LA County and worked her way all the way up to being CFO of LA County. So just really worked really, really hard. She raised my brother and I down the street from my grandma. So we grew up in a kind of little unit where my aunt still lived with my grandma, and my cousins lived over there, and they're like, you know, way older than us, because my aunt had them when she was 17. But they kind of took care of us, and I was always with my aunt who had horses, and we helped take care of them. But anyway, my mom passed in 2007, and for me, that was a really hard thing, and it's still a really hard thing. And at the time, I was kind of spiraling a bit, and I didn't really know what I was going to do. I just was trying to get through college, try to forget, try to ignore that there's this huge hole. And as I was kind of thinking about what to do next, figuring out my life, straightening things out after college and taking a year off, I just, thought that I wanted to do something for my tribe. I wanted to do something that would make my mom proud, and I also just missed her so much that I wanted to be around people who were like her. So, I kind of had this game plan of like, well, I gotta go home. I gotta move back to Sonoma. I gotta go, see people that are like us. So I worked toward doing Indian law. Called up the chairman at the time, Harvey, and I was like, well, how do I get to work for the tribe? And he was like, well, we really just need you to learn about gaming. And I was like, oh, I don't want to do gaming. It's like way more into ICWA and cultural resources and all that stuff. He's like, well, we just need a gaming attorney. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna go get more experience. And so I went to NCAI. While I was there, I found this book called Exterminate Them. It's all these quotes. They're like from newspaper articles around California where they talk about exterminating us, and it's just small. A lot of you probably already know this book, but it's, I think Cliff Dropser actually put it together. And I had it on my desk at NCAI because we didn't really have back then. This was, I was over there in like the mid-2010s. And back then we didn't have a lot of California Indian stories. Like, we had something here or there, but there wasn't a lot you could find about like who we were, what happened here. So I had it on my desk because, as you know, life gets hard, these jobs get hard. And for me, I'd take a look at it every time I felt like quitting or like things were just awful, or you have interpersonal politics, I'm like, oh my God, I just want to quit. And I'd look at that, and it reminded me of like why I'm doing work. Like, nobody knows that history. You know, I think if you've been doing it a long time, you're like, everybody knows this, but really a lot of people don't know it. And in DC, a lot of people don't know it, they don't care about it, they don't care about California Indians. Talk to people from different states, they think we're not Indian when like the most Indians were here, and the worst stuff happened here. It's not a contest, but it was pretty bad here. It's still pretty bad here. And so, you know, throughout my career, I've kind of been working toward getting back up into Sonoma County and working for my tribe. So eventually I moved back and was working for a remote firm. And we moved back, and the election had just happened in 2016. I'm not here to talk politics, but it was really hard for me, realizing that the world wasn't the world I thought it was. And we were living in LA, and I was just like, man, like, I don't know if I can live here anymore. Like, I can't be around these people anymore. I mean, you go outside and you're like, who was it? Who did it to us? Like, who made this happen? And so we ended up, like, by luck, finding on Craigslist this cabin up in Healdsburg. And we checked it out, and I'm like, man, this is great. It's beautiful. It's up on Fitch Mountain. It's super cheap, mostly because there's, like, not electricity, really. It's, like, on a septic tank. It's been there since, you know, 1915. And we ended up, you know, just pulling the trigger, and I'm like, I can work from anywhere. I want to work up here, and I want to work in Indian country up here. Because I was working for a firm that was representing a lot of tribes everywhere, but a lot actually in Pomo country. So we moved up, and the first week we moved up, my cousin who grew up here, he grew up on our rise, he was like, we're driving down our street, and he came up because we were going to go to a tribal general council meeting, but also, you know, so he was staying with me, but we're driving down this road, and it's like, wait, like, do you live here? Like, I was just here for New Year's. All my best friends' parents live on the street. And so we made all these, like, amazing connections immediately. And we're still really good friends with all those people. So we moved up there. I started working with a bunch of tribes. I ended up working for a lot of tribes actually here. So I worked with, and maybe I shouldn't say this on film, but I worked to represent the faction that got disenfranchised and disenrolled at UM, which I'm really proud of that work. And I think things aren't the best right now, but some things have at least stopped. I worked on the amendments to the Constitution with Robinson to stop disenrollment while EJ was chair over there. I worked with Coyote Valley on some of their economic development work and disenrollment work, not disenrolling people, but anti-disenrollment. And really loved all of that work. And then had the opportunity to work with my tribe on Indian child welfare stuff. So I took that on part-time, and it was probably one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever had to do. It starts getting to you when you start seeing these babies that have your same last name, and you know you're related, and you know that you could do something, but you also don't know how to do something, and it's the things that are still plaguing our communities are really, really bad. We don't have enough resources to help in the way we need to help, and it just feels like, I don't know, who else has worked on ICWA here? Do you agree? It's like one of those things where, like, you've got to be so strong to do it. Every other Native attorney I've talked to who's worked on it, it's basically been like, it took everything for me not to adopt every single child that was going through the system. It's awful, awful. And in California, because our tribes are so small and it's all based on kinship, these are people you're related to. These are people who, like, in a traditional space, we just take them in. you know, you wouldn't even think twice, but it's like, we become so detached, we have moved all around that like we're all just dealing with different things and we don't even know each other. So you don't even know if it would be appropriate or if you might be stepping in something, and it's so hard. So anyway, I was working with them, and then I ended up getting this opportunity. And the last day that I was working with my tribe, David Smith-Berry, who is Sherry's husband and works at Dry Creek, was like, hey, did you know that your great-grandma recorded like an interview? I'm like, what? I had no clue. I was just kind of like trying to figure out where I was going next and kind of following my own gut. And he's like, yeah, no, like we've got actually her on recording because we were going to do a museum exhibit at one point, and then we've also got like all of these first-person materials of her talking about her life, about her family, and you should have this because, you know, she's my great-great-grandma, or my great-grandma actually, and so he gave me all of that stuff just as I left working for the tribe. So as I was starting this job, I started kind of reading through those materials, and I think what's super interesting about it is that it's done by a linguist, it's done by Oswald, because he was trying to pick up on the Dry Creek dialect of Southern Pomo. So the only reason that we have the materials we have for Dry Creek Pomo language is because of my great-grandma talking to Oswald. And everybody's really mad at her at the time for doing it, but I'm pretty grateful for her doing it because now I have this great connection that I didn't know existed. And so gave me all these materials, so I was picking through them, and I was reading them in my little cabin up on Fitch Mountain, overlooking the Russian River. And you know, she's talking about all of this stuff she went through. She talks about, being, when she saw the first white man arrive in Healdsburg, Mr. Hill or something that it's named after. She talks about working in the general store in Healdsburg when she was a kid, and she only spoke, the Southern Pomo dialects and the neighboring dialects because you have to talk to each other. You're not going to just talk to your family. And so she didn't know English, she didn't know, other languages, and she was working in this general store. And so she just talks about her life, and it's like, normal, but all this like really messed up stuff happens. All this really messed up stuff happened to her family. And what's interesting though is like the linguist's impressions of this, because he wanted to write a book about it. He never got around to it, which is why we have all this cool raw material that's not through his lens, to an extent. But his impressions are so interesting because they talk about it like it's an artifact of the past, and all of this violence that she personally witnessed and went through, and that our family personally witnessed and went through, was just like a thing that happened, and that the messed up thing, the impression I get from his impression is that it's this like our people that are the problem, and that our people are like violent, and our people are living in weird situations without taking any ownership over the fact that like people are in these situations and in this violence because of the violence that happened to us. So it's pretty interesting just reading through it, and I won't go through the full details, but she talks about how she had like just a ton of children, and my grandpa's the youngest baby of all of her kids, but she was talking about how like her favorite place she ever lived was in Camp Rose. And so I was telling my neighbor, I was like, hey, she talks about Camp Rose, it's her favorite place she raised her kids here. And he's like, well, you live in Camp Rose right now. And so it was this like weird moment of feeling like I was like exactly in the place I needed to be. Unfortunately, I had to move for this job, but we still have friends over there, so I go back a lot. And I've been doing the job, and well, I guess I'll back up. So my great grandma is Elizabeth Jacinto Cordova Dollar. And so she has a lot of names because she married a lot of people and had a lot of kids. But if you know a Dollar, we're probably related because there's only a couple of her kids are Dollars. And then, all our family. So my mom ended up having, I think, that we know of, 4 sisters and 2 brothers all the way up into Idaho. We all kind of know who we are, but we all, I know our nuclear family. And so in her history, she talks about, growing up in this place where there were no white people. She was raised by my great-great-great-grandma because her mom had had her when she was 14. She'd basically been sold to someone and then had her. But she talks about how her grandma, wanna cook. Her mom was Rosabelle, her grandma's wanna cook, my great-great-great-grandma. Kind of the only reason that we're still here is that at the time that the Americans came, she had been a cook on one of the ranchos here, and was warned by the person there that the Americans were coming and they were forcing people to go up to Round Valley, and so you better get out of here or else they're going to take you too. So her later husband ended up going up to Round Valley and coming back, but she ended up heading to the coast because our people would go to the coast, hang out with Kashaya, come back. So we had a lot of friends and family in Kashaya. So went to the coast where Fort Ross was at the time, and just lived out there, survived out there with her baby at the time. And anytime there was a threat, they'd hide. There's these cliff caves there, so they'd hide there and survive there for a very long time. And the only reason that they were able to survive in hiding like that for so long was because the Russians would bring them food and kept them alive. And so eventually when the threat was over, when the Americans just weren't, basically, for those that aren't aware of the history up here, they were forcing them by gun. And so it's a death march that happened up here. People died, lots of women and children died on the way up to Round Valley. A lot of people escaped, so people who came from the east would, look at the mountains and head back home. A lot of people hid, but it was a really bad situation up here. But so she ended up heading back, I'm sorry I'm almost done, heading back and getting a land transfer, and I need to actually look at it a little bit more, so if there's any inaccuracies, please don't hammer on me for that. But she ended up going back, and that's kind of the whole reason that we have even the Rancheria, is because she got that land. So fast forward, I'm working my job with Governor Brown, and he just loves Fort Ross. It's this amazing, you can speak to it, Jason. He loves the history there. There's the first and only treaty that was ratified between the Russians and the Kashaya in 1817. They protected a lot of the people from the Americans and other colonial interests up here. And so there's also a lot of cross-cultural exchange as well. I know all the Pomo people here know it, but some of the most well-preserved and oldest baskets from Pomo people are in St. Petersburg because they brought back baskets with them. And there's also stories of women they took back that are just live in Russia. They also brought down Alaska Native people as slaves, basically, who were buried at Fort Ross. So there's just a lot of weird stuff over there. But I was staffing the governor on that for the longest time until I finished that record and then saw this whole history there. So it's like this weird thing that's, again, making me feel like I'm in the right place at the right time. So then we come to, the new governor is in town, he wants to do more things and better, and we talk about what could happen that would build on the last administration. And when he learns that nobody's ever apologized for what happened here, if he's supportive governor, he's like, I want to do that, I want to apologize. But for me, as a Native person, it's like, if you apologize and that's it, like, man, like, I might need to quit. It's going to be bad. Because you need something to come out of it. So, with the apology, I embedded in it this Truth and Healing Council, because part of it for me was like, I got the benefit of this story. I got to see this and connect with my ancestors. I'm like living it now, like kind of just experiencing this history. And, reconnecting with a lot of people that we're related to, and understanding and solidifying like who I am in this world in relation to everybody else. And so that's why we created this council. Like, we wanted other people to know those stories, and we wanted people to be able to tell those stories, and we wanted to be able to celebrate that resilience from your own perspective. My family ended up, my great-grandma had a house on the reservation. She raised her kids up there. My mom would get dropped off every summer, and my great-grandma was like, I don't know what you'd call it, but she was like the head of like a farm. And so they'd pick prunes all summer and pick like berries and things. Because child labor like doesn't totally exist some places, or isn't totally eradicated some places if it's family. And so she'd get dropped off every summer and then go back down south every fall. And always thought it was hilarious that people think this is wine country when it was just a bunch of prunes for like until maybe the 70s. Then my uncle came up and his family lived on a reservation, and so that's why I said like my cousin, he grew up here. He had really it was a hard life for him, and like I think my mom tried to help as much as she could, but like they didn't have electricity, they didn't have running water. Like he almost died from a concussion from baseball. Like it's really rough. But then and I'm not going to talk about this too much because it's now tribal politics, but like then the casinos happened and our family got kicked off the Reds and offered a place in Cloverdale, but my uncle wasn't able to pay the taxes on that, so then he got kicked out of there, and also almost disenrolled because he opposed the casino project vocally to the LA Times. So our family is kind of a bit of rabble-rousers, which again is why I don't talk about it too much. But the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, I guess. Or the acorn doesn't fall too far from the tree. But that's I guess not the whole story, but I think is why I'm so committed to this process. That's my story. I try to connect with my people as much as possible, and I try to help people who need help as much as possible, but I think I'll stop there. I brought one of the stories because Carmen, you wanted to hear some of the stories. I can hold off on that till the afternoon, but I'll share it with you later. This book is actually, so a lot of our legends are from my great-grandma, and the book was gifted to me by my mom's cousin Reg. It was signed by her cousin Sherry, who wrote the book and put it in here. So it's a kind of nice, it's been for me this nice journey of family and connection and community. So it's a really long intro. If y'all want to be as long, I'm okay with that. And that'll be the most I share, I think, throughout this process. But yeah, that's who I am, and I'll pass it along.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Felipe LaLuz. I'm a biologist with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. Really appreciative to be here. I recognize that the stories that I'm going to hear, the stories that I've already heard, are a gift, and it's not an easy gift to give, so I'm really grateful to be able to be here and witness this. I facilitate the Clear Lake Hitch Task Force, which was formed about a year and a half ago. Some tribal elders and citizens and EPA staff came to the Fish and Game Commission, provided some very moving public testimony, and really motivated us at the department to take some real action to conserve the Clear Lake Hitch. And I just happened to be in the right place at the right time to elevate it. So I'm here to listen and to learn, and really appreciate Middletown Rancheria and all the people here that are going to be sharing. So that's why I'm here. So I'll pass it on. That's all I have to say.
Hi everyone. My name is Jason McCannell. I work at California State Parks in the director's office, and I'm lined up with the speaker in a way that's really confusing me as I hear my own voice reflected back. So bear with me for a second as I get my bearings. I know a lot of you have been here yesterday or even the day before, so I don't want to bore you by saying the same things over and over again. I'm supporting the council in its research and reporting efforts. I'm not writing the report. I'm not providing the ideas in the report. I'm putting everything together into something that can work as a report. I'm doing the work. And I'm really blessed to be here because I think it's the most important work the state of California has ever done in its history. I guess a few things to know about me. I work on place names. I'm a geographer. I'm a leader in re-examining our past initiative at state parks, and I also serve in the Department of Interior, federal government, in the Advisory Committee on Reconciliation and Place Names. What that means is, well, at parks, I'm generally a proponent on place name changes. So when we want to take a derogatory word or a problematic person's name off of a geographic feature and replace it ideally with a native name, I lead on that effort. So there's actually a couple of cases right now in Lake County that we're working on. The Koi Nation has two features that they've asked to be, well, one of them's being named for the first time, and there's a trail that they're asking to be renamed. Then we're also looking forward to supporting the efforts to change the name of Kelseyville, which is long overdue. And since there's a state park there, we can lend some help to that effort. I'm really glad to be there. Other than that, I am here to do the research that you want me to do. We're going to be partnering soon with scholars from the community. We're working out the sort of budgetary and administrative details of that at the moment. But for now, you do have me if you want me to find anything. I was Governor Brown's researcher for 8 years. I didn't get the job because people liked me or I'm a normal person. I got it because I find things. And that's what I'm here for. I guess you could say I ain't nothing but a hound dog. I really look forward. It was great at the subcommittees this week to receive a lot of feedback for things that people wanted me to look into, anything from old historical stuff to current data from the census or from wherever on issues that are impacting the community. I do it all, or I find somebody who can if I can't. And that's what I'm here for. And once again, blessed to be here. And it's a lot, but it's, I don't know, it's kind of become my life for the last year or so. Because I've been to every one of these except the time I fell down with the flu. I can just say, I'm not going to talk about myself, it's changed me a lot. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm going to just read from my notes here so that I stay on topic and don't start to go into other things. So I'm grateful to be here today in person. This was on Zoom a lot of the time, so just very nice to be here with relatives in person. My name's Madonna Feather Cruz. I'm an enrolled member of the Round Valley Indian Tribes, Rancheria, and I'm Lakota on my father's side. My Lakota name is Wichapi Lupawin, which translates to Many Stars Woman, given to me by medicine man Rick Two Dogs of Pine Ridge. My mom was Denise Feather from Round Valley Indian Tribes. My father, Walter Feather, Lakota from South Dakota. My grandmother, Norma Fullwelder from Round Valley Indian Tribes. My grandfather, Bill Knight from Rancheria. I wanted to talk about Round Valley. There's such a high rate of murders. I was hoping to get that number, but I wasn't able to get that with one murder of a woman just the other day who had I believe, a baby or two. I am a third generation boarding school Native American woman. I'm a child survival of sexual assault and every other abuse known to us. I'm a 5-time cancer survivor. And even in my darkest days of feeling hopeless, I had the pride of my mom, my grandma, and my grandmas before. All of the ancestors that came before me. When I was 10 years old, I told my mother what happened to me as a little girl, and she took me to Consolidated Tribal Health, and I started my healing journey working with Jenny Marufo from Kashaya. I was told I would never be able to have kids due to that assault, but Creator blessed me with a son and a daughter. And I'm copying this from you. Everything I'm doing, I'm trying to make my mom proud too. My ACEs scores, adverse childhood experience, is a 10. That's not good. But my resiliency score is a 10 out of 14. So that's why I'm alive today. In regards to MMIW, missing murdered Indigenous women, I think of my beautiful 20-year-old daughter and how I would never want anything to happen to her. So to prevent her from being a MMIW, I have never called her a bad name, cussed at her, or hit her. And when she turned 18, I didn't say to her, okay, you're 18, you're an adult, you need to move out. I am her teacher. I am giving her tools to make healthy choices for her own safety and her future generations. She has my debit cards on her Apple Wallet iPhone, so that if she ever feels unsafe or is at a party or on travel, she could leave by getting an Uber or a Lyft and returning home safely no matter where she is. I recently submitted a proclamation to the city of Santa Rosa on MMIW, and that was approved by the mayor and will be given to me and my community on May 7th at the city council meeting. With Indian Education in Santa Rosa City School District, I organized, along with the committee, an honoring ceremony for Native students 8th and 12th grade. I want to share that I had worked for 4 years to change the dress code for Native students to be able to wear their traditional regalia, and my daughter was able to do that when she graduated 12th grade from Santa Rosa High. They really were mad that I kept going to meetings and asking for that, but I'm glad I kept going. Also, I want to share, I'm not sure why Sonoma County Indian Health Project is not contracted with ITCC, Inter-Tribal Council of California, but I waited a year recently to get my therapist, and because of Trina Fitzgerald and the Mending Basket Resource Center, I was able to do support groups on my lunchtime and 5 o'clock while in traffic, which I think probably saved my life. All of her groups are on Zoom, and they're there for people who have like CPS cases or their ICWA mandates, but for me, it helped me while I waited so long to get a therapist. Things close to my heart. I'm a third generation legacy of Susquehanna Inter-Tribal Council based in Napa. My grandmother was a part of that. And because I am a child survivor of sexual assault, I am very involved with Redemption House of the Bay Area. We help human trafficking survivors get on their feet and try to help them have a happy and healthy future. Another thing I want to talk about is the Indian Museum. It's a portable classroom located in the Roseland School District in Santa Rosa. I've been going to meetings for a couple years now, trying to get that classroom open so I could volunteer at least one day a week on my lunch. I've been locked out due to mold being in that little portable classroom. There are traditional baskets in there, taxidermy. There's a hawk, a bobcat, and other sacred items. I'm still trying to get that open. In my free time, I volunteer with various boards assisting with immigrants, farm workers, cultural preservation youth, Native youth, LGBTQ young adults, disabled, homeless natives with disabilities, human trafficking survivors, child survivors of sexual assault, parents of all races, and teen moms. I regularly tell my kids that it is a privilege to be Native American and to please consider marrying Native. I am grateful for the Truth and Healing Council for the latest subcommittee persons with disabilities, as I am 100% legally disabled, all of them invisible. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm also trying to plan a dinner for my daughter tonight, but also wanted to be here. Vivian McLeod, an enrolled member and tribal secretary of Big Valley, Band of Pomo Indians of Big Valley Rancheria. Also a descendant of Cloverdale Rancheria and Wapo, Alexander Valley. I'm also my second day of the healing meetings. I shared something yesterday, and because I was so nervous, I think I got tongue-tied, but I've been on my tribal council for 8 years now. And coming into the first term, I was set there to learn, take care of your people, get the job done. Second term, I was honored to actually meet my cousin Phil Gomez, who recently passed away. But also honored because he shared so much culture and tradition with me that I didn't know before. And I'm able to carry that through with my current term. So I want to say thank you to him. I did get to, but not as much. Get to thank him as much before he passed. But in being here, I'm talking with Miss Carmen. I also want to say thank you, Miss Carmen, for your blessing this morning. And Mr. Jim and his wife, they talked to me a lot. I wasn't raised on my reservation. My grandmother left when she was younger and married my grandfather. My grandmother's name is Frances B. Sick Bayless. Her married name is McLeod, from my grandfather Sidney McLeod, who's a son of Grover McLeod from Wapo. And he too traveled down here, and that's how the McLeod name is so prominent, is because him and his brothers partied on Big Valley Reservation in Rancheria. And so, yeah, we understand that, right? Like how the name changed and how we're all cousins. So growing up in Santa Rosa all my life up until a young adult, and I became a mom at 18, unfortunately a lot of our culture didn't transfer over to myself and my brothers and sisters. And being in my role today, I want to get back to that. I want to learn it, I want to feel it, so this has helped so much. Because I met people that I can go to for help. And I would love to get culture back into the way we're leading our people today. Because it isn't just about grants and housing and jobs and economic development, it's about healing. You know, that trauma, that generational trauma that keeps happening because we're not talking about it. But we're not, I don't want to use the word trained, but we're not taught to talk about our feelings. And we rarely say, I love you. And I'm trying to do that with my kids, but it's hard. But I also just want to say thank you too for, whoever has put this all together. Thank you to Middletown for providing space. I'd love to have one in our area, on our reservation, our lands, so that way you guys can see our area. We all have beautiful areas out here. I wanted to read just a little bit about Big Valley's history that one of our chairmen had wrote, and you can find it on our page. Because Ms. Carmen said to share your story, and I wanted to do a little bit of that about our facts of how we were formulated. And so, Big Valley tribal members are descendants of the Benapole Band of Pomo Indians that historically have inhabited the Clear Lake area for over 11,000 years. For many generations, the various Pomo tribes, Pomo bands, have unfettered use of the lands and waters of Lake County, California. In 1851, our leaders met with the representative of the President of the United States and all agreed upon a treaty that would allow us to live in peace and harmony with the new settlers coming to the area. This treaty established a reservation with a habitable area of approximately 72 square miles of the south side of Clear Lake, which encompassed Mount Canacti, east of Kelsey Creek. The area also included significant waterfront property, and we do have tribal houses and businesses right on the lake. Our casino's got a marina, hotel, so, sorry, I lost my place. Waterfront property just west of an exclusive area known as Buckingham. The United States Senate, in an executive session, refused to ratify this and 17 other California treaties and ordered them filed under an injunction of secrecy, which was not removed until January 18, 1905, 53 years later. At the same time, Congress passed the Land Claim Act of 1851, which provided that claims to all lands in California be presented within 2 years of the date of the act. Our leaders were unaware of the need to present their claims, and failed to meet the statutory deadline. Deprived of the protected legal title to their lands by treaty or formal claim, our ancestors became landless. Years later, the various Pomo bands around the lake were given small parcels of land called rancherias. Our rancheria site was initially established as a Catholic mission in 1877. In 1914, the U.S. Department of Interior purchased the land for our tribe, and in 1936, under the Indian Reorganization Act, we were federally recognized. The tribe was subsequently reestablished by court order as a federally recognized tribal entity in 1983 under the Tilly Hardwick. During that 20-year period, approximately half of the original Rancheria land had been resold to non-Indians. In 1986, we began the process of reconstituting our rights of self-determination by reforming our government through the guidance of our 1936 Constitution. And we also began the task of taking back our land. And that is still happening today. We are, continuously having to buy our land back and going through the process of putting it into trust. And that's just a little bit of it, but if you want to read more, it's on our website at www.bvrancheria.com. But some of the things we struggle with are, we have an ICWA representative who's heavily dedicated and does a great job at keeping our tribal families together, even while dealing with the court system. And we struggle with substance abuse, sexual assault, sexual abuse, and just trying to create more opportunities and services for our people while working with the federal and state governments. And with our housing funds we just received, and it was a task and a half, the home key funding was just a pain in the rear. It was promised, and then it was like, wait, hold on, we're not just there yet. We're not there yet. So we finally received our funding, which is awesome because we purchased a 15-unit apartment complex to house more of our homeless and needy tribal members. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Getting into this whole land back thing that's happening, it's kind of unfortunate because it sounds really great, but then when you're sitting down and talking with the people, it's like, but that's really not gonna be your land, really. We still gotta work together and maintain the land. And I'm learning more about this too, as far as the land stewardship, right? Stewards of the land. And I'm learning more about that because when I first started my term, a lot of it was just get in there and help your people, create more jobs, like I said, right? Not necessarily learning about how important the land is to us, how it is to us as a nature, human nature, Mother Earth, the waters, the soil, and to be told now, you guys, you had it right the first time. Unfortunately, we took it and let's try to work together and to make things better now, but yet still keeping us from actually doing our jobs because we're the true healers of the land is unfortunate. I'm glad that we're working towards that and hopefully getting somewhere. I would like to see that the tribes be involved from a lot of these decision makings and discussions from the beginning of time and not during the end of time. Okay, well now it's the tribal time, let's reach out to them because we have to do that. We have to check that box, and I've said this to, I don't want to say a name, but another organization, we're not just boxes. You don't just check us off on the boxes. And don't think if you didn't hear from a tribe, that means good news. No news is good news. That's not the state for tribes. How about you come out and meet with us, knock on our doors, and we're more than ready to share information. We're more than happy to help. I'm glad that I'm here today because it starts, my healing and my learning is starting today to better the lives, not only in my job and what I provide and what I'm working towards for the betterment of my tribal people, but of my sisters too, my sister tribes too, because we should all work together and help each other. I don't forget where I come from, I want to learn more where I come from. And I'm happy to have met so many people here. Some things happen for a reason, not some things. Everything happens for a reason. You're in this place where you're meant to be, right? Like you said, where you found out where you lived. You're on land. And so, when I'm working, I think of my grandmother and my great-grandmother, who was Vivian Fred, who I'm honored to share her name from. And when I was younger, I didn't understand it. Why did you give me old lady name, Mom? A lot of people would go, Vivian, wow, that's such a unique name. You don't hear that often. And as I got out of my younger adult stupidity phase, I'm honored to have this name and to carry it forward. And I just want to thank everybody here, and like I did yesterday, for the humbleness and the courage of sharing your stories, sharing our tears together. And I'm going to be a part of this going forward. I really, really do want to. And bring elders in youth. We just recently lost an elder this morning, and that's knowledge and history that we can't get back. And so while they're here, we need to take advantage of that space we have with them and that time we have with them, because when they're gone, you can't get it. And so I just would like for everybody to hold her and her family in your prayers when you go home tonight, and as well as all those who have lost, because all of us are losing people. And we should take care of each other, and I need to do better at that too. I need to not say it, I need to do it. And so my promise today is that I'm going to start doing more than saying. And so, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dosha Dodd. I work at Sonoma State. I'm here today as an ally listening, and I'm excited to be back to the lake because this is where I grew up. My name is Courtney Coyle. I'm an ally, a radicalized attorney, I guess you could say at this point. I'm an attorney in private practice from the San Diego area. I've lived there since 1991, originally from the East Coast and Barrier Islands, the Jersey Shore and Southwest Florida that I still go back to. And I help protect cultural landscapes, burial grounds, sacred places of tribes, and trying to make the repatriation process better. I'm here in this capacity because I support Councilmember Carmen Lucas in her participation here on the council, and I learned something every day from everybody who comes and testifies, so it helps me not just be a better lawyer, but a better person. So I want to thank everybody for that.
Thank you. My name is Gail White-Rock. I also thank Middletown and Mike Simon and the council and members for hosting us, and thank you for the Healing Council for journeying here to be with us. And this is actually my second time I've attended the Healing Council. We went to the San Francisco one at the notorious Hastings Law School. And so this is my second experience. And my name is Gail White-Rock Brown. I've been blessed to live in Lake County for the last 50 years, but originally I'm from Mendocino County, Ukiah Valley. I'm from the Ukiah tribe and Didiville tribe in Mendocino counties. And my mom, parents are from Ukiah also, grandfather from Upper Lake. My dad's father's from Lone Pine, California, so I have blood ties there. And we have also blood ties to the coast. My mom's grandparents are from the coast also, so quite a few relatives. Though I'm born and raised in Ukiah on the Ukiah Rancheria, our tribe took a little different path to survival. We bought our land in the late 1870s, acquired title and deed to our land under the Ukiah tribe of Indians, and we've been paying taxes for the last 147 years, 44 years. And so we've been mostly free of the federal status of doing business, times with the Bureau. Although the last 50 years I've been living a federal recognized status lifestyle with my husband. He's the federally recognized tribe. But my particular interest today is, like I said, we've taken a different path. In buying our land, we had captains. 4 captains came together with their people and decided that we needed a home for our people. And so they got together and we made up a down payment for a property, went to a party to buy property over our own property back. And like I said, the early 1880s, we received the deed to our land. We've been celebrating that year, October 20th, as receiving deed. And so from that time on, it was under captain's leaderships, lifetime leaderships, until around the early 1900s, our first 2 captains made their journey. And so we were forced into court by their descendants who felt that they were entitled to their portion of our land, which is 126 acres. Not a large piece, but was adequate for our needs for a home for our returning people who never left, but just to get land back. So we had to go to court. The court decided that the land is for the people to share equally, not for any one particular group or one particular family. And we had a ruling that we are, which the deed is in our name, Yokayo Tribe of Indians. We had a ruling that we were considered by the court, state of California, a voluntary unincorporated association, and with the lineal descendants by blood to the exclusion of all others. This was all a part of the judgment. So we went on with trustees. From captains, we started having lifetime trustees. And during my lifetime, the last male trustee was Madonna's grandfather, my uncle, Bill Knight. I knew him. He left the trusteeship, I believe in around 1967. I remember that. I'm 67 now. So for the last 60 years, Yokayo has been run by women. And it's almost a return on its own to the matriarch, which was of the tribal people, tribal women, and they were appointing the trustees. The trustees would appoint the trustees. And so, as it turns out, we've had a succession of trustees. My grandmother was the last living trustee. She appointed her daughters, who are always politically involved. And my mom made her journey, my grandmother made her journey in '82. My mom just recently made her journey. She was one of the last trustees. She appointed me and my sisters as trustees maybe 4 or 5 years ago in business capacity. So what we've encountered now is, since self-determination, I'll say, I'm not necessarily sure the gaming was the catalyst, but it somewhat turned our sovereignty in the sense that 2/3 of our members now have joined with federally recognized tribes, but still maintain residence on our land and are now building homes. And we pay taxes for any improvements on our property over whatever duration, whatever structure's built, whatever improvements are made. So some of these members, and there's like 5, 6 maybe federally recognized tribes represented through our members. And they're now starting to, which isn't bringing on building homes and bringing trailers and things, which building homes is a part of our tradition. We wanted to maintain our stability, our sustainability by building our homes. We weren't allowing trailers. We still provide water through wells to our members. And free, we don't charge them. So, but what we've come up against now is that some of the federal members to our tribes now want to, and our tribe has been on the register for federal recognition. The last set of trustees had to fight that since the 70s because we are private and we don't want federal recognition. We feel we've gained sovereignty. And so that declined somewhat, but it's now resurfacing with gaming. Some of the members want our tribe to become federally recognized, get off of their roles and use our tribe. And so we don't want that. My family doesn't want that. We've never wanted that. It goes against the decision that the court ruled. And so I grew up, my father's federally recognized. I had an option, but we chose to stay with the loyalty to our trust, which is to maintain our lands the way our ancestors said, that this is how we are going to maintain. And so we've done it. So I guess today what I'm looking for here maybe is, we've been threatened with attorneys. Some of the other federal recognized members are organizing, and they want, I guess, what the other federally recognized tribes are getting, maybe gaining. I'm not really sure, because we're two different groups now because of it. And so they've gotten attorneys, you know. We're in the position now of where we had to cut a new road because we've been blocked from our main entrance to our home by somebody that's opposing, you know, that doesn't like, you know, what we're, you know, that because we oppose it. You know, that's, I know happens everywhere, but, you know, it's particularly hard when it's just women, you know, that don't have any, the cops is our only recourse. Sure, we have attorney, you know, we could get an attorney, but, you know, it's all out of pocket, your own expense, you know, it's not really anything we're funded to do or, but it's the life that we've had for the last 144 years, and we cherish it, you know, we cherish our property, I mean, we, you know. So I guess maybe what I'm looking for today in the sense of healing is maybe advice, maybe something from the state at a level. I mean, we're more inclined to be in tune with the state than with the federal government because we get nothing from the federal government. And so I think that's more or less, you know, my plight of trying to understand what to do, you know, where to go, or rather than just getting a lawyer and, you know, start, you know, suing. You know, they've got lawyers, as a matter of fact. Their lawyer took my mom to court, and at 87 years old, there was 3-year restraining against her for parking her car too far in the road. The attorney's name was Lester Marston, and he tried to get my sisters hooked on the same lawsuit, but we had to disqualify some judges in Mendocino County. So they kicked it to Sonoma County, and Sonoma County said, no, you have no grounds to, that restraining order never went in to begin with. So, so it's really hard, you know, for us when we're not really savvy on the, having attorneys or the politicalness and of, you know, the atmosphere. Sure, we, you know, have done political things at the level of county, you know, state, but when it comes to the federal government, it's usually like fighting federal recognition. We had to do that. Like I said, our names are on the list to be become federally recognized, which we had to fight. So again, like I said, that's, you know, that's my plight. That's kind of where we're at. We're just, you know, looking for, you know, I guess advice. You know, it's really hard. It's a gray area, I guess you would call it. You know, I'm not really sure. But again, it just helps to share. You know, so just wanted to thank everybody. Thank you.
And I'd like to let you all know that next month we're going to celebrate 50 years of our marriage in the roundhouse. Also, it's really important. What I always talk about is how we're connected and how really the government keeps dividing us as families. A good example, I trace all of my family on both sides. And we have a little saying up here in Lake County, we call each other mud ducks. Have you heard that saying before? Okay, well, if you're not from Lake County, you don't know that. But guess what? Almost all the tribes that are here got mud duck feet too. You guys are related to us. And whether you like it or not, a good example, like I said, when I traced my parents, my grandparents, George Lacento, his mother was from Miranda, from Georgia. Okay? Every tribe that I went to, I had family in. And when I went back and looked at it, what Gail was actually saying is they're actually the last matriarch society, which all of our tribes were once. We weren't patriarch society. The females, they were the chiefs, and they appointed the male chiefs. I know because I'm a part of that. A good example, I also have an aunt that married into Scotts Valley from Miranda. So Scotts Valley, look at, they're related to us. Big Valley, my mom and 4 of her sisters married into Atlanta. Now us and Big Valley should be the same tribe almost, right? Look at that. Look how we're connected. See, nobody traces that anymore because now we're doing this BIA, how much blood you got, who you belong to, this kind of stuff. And that's the thing that my parents kept telling me. Don't forget how we're connected. And our culture is the most important one. And I was hoping my cousin, a good example, my grandfather, who was the chief, Thomas Leon, his wife was named Leora Simon. Now, I think I'm related to the people here. See, that's the connection that nobody wants to talk about. So we're all related through kinship, traditional kinship. And that's what is forgotten in this white society that we have to live in. Now, what I brought today, like I said, I was hoping my cousin could be here, but this is something that really inspired me when I found it in some of the records. Because I realized I've been living this life. And I'd like to read this to you, and it says, listen, all of you who have come here for these doings. Listen to what the great Father has revealed to us. A man with no family has no history and no eyes to see the future. He goes about blind. Our family, our relatives, are not only those around us, they are also those who have gone before us. They are our history. They give us our ways, and we are to be the teachers of our culture. Not the anthropologists at Berkeley, not those people, because they got all the information from our elders. If we lose our ways, our history will be lost, and there will be no one to tell us where to go. That's why these Indian things we do and doings are so important. They are our eyes and our children's eyes. The Father said this to be said for all of us here. And it says, by Tom Smith, the Bodega Miwok dreamer and prophet, said at the center pole on December 1898 at the Middletown Rancheria. That's how we were connected. All of those roundhouses, from here down to the coast. At one time, we had a total of 38 roundhouses and 11 counties. They had to eliminate all of that. And ironically, we talked about the RA Indian Reorganization Act. If you look at the actual written part where it says the Indian people have to get their culture, their leadership, and everything of their Indianness to become an IRA tribe. My tribe was an IRA tribe. We didn't know anything about it. They forced it upon us. So see, those are the kind of things we don't realize that we get into. So anyway, I just wanted to bring this up because I wanted to show that connectedness. But I did because as an elder, I feel obligated to do what I can to teach. And just to let you, some of you may not know, the lake right here is 1.2 million years old. It's the oldest lake in the Western Hemisphere. Mount Konokatai, which people around here call Kanatai, is a part of the Ring of Fire, the volcanoes, where the oldest civilizations all exist. And my family actually has stories of us coming by boat here. We even have stories of when the Pacific Ocean wasn't saltwater, it was freshwater. So that's one of the things that I try to do and connect people. So what I did was we got to doing a documentary. So I've been doing this on my own. So I brought some pictures for you guys to look at. And these are pictures that and I'll set them up somewhere here, but these are for example, these are the roundhouse ceremonies that we've been documenting, that we've been doing here in Lake County. And yeah, kids go ahead and set it there, you can offline see it, but so here are a good example is this is in the 30s, and this is the Grindstone Rancheria coming over for roundhouse ceremonies. Now remember, like I said before, the Northern Paiute brought the ghost dance here. And it came up from the valley to us, and it spread out. That's where all our visionaries are. In matter of fact, all our dreamers and visionaries were females. And all the regalia that we're still dancing are from those females. And it's their songs that we're still singing in the roundhouse. Okay, so here's our subterranean roundhouse. Right here, the UC Berkeley destroyed it and took all the artifacts. They even recorded it. They got a book out called the Maroon Cult. And they show how they came, they even got a receipt for the regalia. And they know, and so I document, so remember before I mentioned eastlaketribe.com? Go on there, I have all these documents. Matter of fact, I actually have a section, it's called Ring of Thieves. And it includes all the colleges, all the stuff they stole from us. They still have. Okay? And so again, this is us dancing on Rattlesnake Island. My friend Valerie Stanley was here the other day. Her mother came to that ceremony. And about 4 years ago, she said, her mother passed on, and she said she had a note, make sure you give this to Jim Brown. And there are 40 pictures of us dancing on the roundhouse on Rattlesnake Island that she now have. And that's all going to go on my website. So these are, like I said, this drum. They took this drum, this is the foot drum inside the roundhouse. Berkeley came and took that. And they had it out in the state park, and when we went after it, they couldn't find it. You know, almost everything that they say, and I have it documented, they even stole our house flag. And then, like I said, I should have brought the book because they published it. It's a red book, and it's called The Maroon Cult. And in 1989, I was the secretary treasurer of my tribe, and we submitted an ad proclaim, and we actually submitted their book as evidence. Because they listed everything they stole. You know, and here's the difference. See? So you got to remember now, the Europeans are a patriarch society. Okay? So when they looked at it, somebody said, hey, well, you know that elder died, but you can go find her son, and he might sell her regalia to you. Well, guess what? Her son was an alcoholic. He never had nothing to do with this ceremony. But because he was her son, they figured, oh, he owns everything now. So guess what? We have a receipt. They bought 2 jugs of wine and $20 and gave it to me. And that's what supposedly they paid for the regalia. Okay, see, these are the kinds of things I've been spending a lot of years documenting. And again, a lot of people don't realize Rattlesnake Island was never an island. It was dredged by the mining company to make it a permanent island. So I have all this history. There's even a good example here in this tribe, because of the many mining, you know, all the Chinese that were here. There were 2 groups of Chinese at Elam, and they didn't get along with each other. See, nobody really tells the story, but guess what? This tribe, they have Chinese ancestry. The Yi family from Middletown. And many other families are related to that family in the other tribes. So those are the kinds of things. Anyway, I just wanted to share this with you. And I actually have another one, but this, so I've gone, this is a 1940s aerial army map of Elam. Now here's our island. That shows all, this is before the dredging of the mine started. And so this shows you now, a good example, there's a book called Pomo Lands on Clear Lake that is documented where it shows every one of these codes here were privately owned because we were fishermen. We actually had a place right over here that we called Honeymoon Cove. That when you got married, that's where you went. The family sent you there. And the best story I ever grew up, my uncle, he passed on at age 101, Nelson Hopper from Big Valley. He said to me, he said, you know, nephew, you got to remember one thing. He goes, your parents made history because when they got married, all the Big Valley people brought her down in boats to Eland for her marriage of your father. I don't have a picture of that, but it felt so good. You know, that kind of connection that he had at that time. So anyway, I just want to take more time, but if you have any questions, please get a hold of me and my contact. I'm doing the best I can. If it wasn't for my culture, all of the things let's say I've been disenfranchised, I've been almost disenrolled, I've been relocated, what is it, everything, a policy, I went through that. You know what, I grew up in the Bay Area, you know. Like I said, with the name James Brown, all I had to do was learn to dance, and I've got to learn to do it, and that's what happened. But I realized it was my culture that saved me, because I started dancing when I was 14, indoctrinated in that. And when I got down there, every dance was easy to do, because I've been dancing all the years. But so, anyway, a good example, I just want to tell you, my traditional name is Tokukan Komat. And for a long time, when I was growing up, I used to be ashamed of that name. Because you know what it means? Gray squirrel. Okay, now, when you grew up, that person's name, eagle, or, got this great, names, number, squirrel, don't they kind of say that's so funny? That's kind of good. And so I went, I asked my grandmother, I said, Grandma, how do you guys start calling me that? She goes, look up the legend of the gray squirrel. And after I found that, I had no more shame of that name. And what the story basically said was the elders all came in. They were looking for a chief of the roundhouse to lead the roundhouse. So they told all the men, all the relatives. Now remember, when we called relatives, we talked about everyone, animals, everyone. He said, go out, whoever could go out and get the wood to start this fire at the roundhouse. Bring it back the fastest. You're going to be the leader of this roundhouse. So everyone took off. Okay, the gray squirrel was the one to come back first. Because he picked up the obsidian. And he walked over and he looked at the manzanita tree. Now see, that was one of the great things. Do you know what the manzanita tree? It dies. We don't have to chop it down and kill it. That's the wood that became the traditional wood to burn in the fire. Because Gray Squirrel was able to bring it back on his back faster than all the others trying to chop the wood and bring the big logs. And they appointed him as the chief. And she said, the chief is going to have the assistant called Basawan and wood duck. My son is named Basawan. It's eagle in our language. My next door niece, Bernina, her name is wood duck. Our ancestors are still with us. So we carry the spirit every time we go into our roundhouse. This April is our dance, the end of April. And that's where we heal ourselves. See, at one time, we had a sweat lodge, and they were mixed up with the roundhouse. Because we actually had men's sweat lodges, where the healthy uncles, not the drunk uncles, the healthy uncles lived. And the mothers who were having problems with their children were sent there, the boys. So there was always a ceremony that we had And the ceremony was to pierce this belly button of the young boys to make them become men and take responsibility. So that's one of the ceremonies we do that day. It still goes on. And it's funny because like we all say, I remember sitting around all my life growing up, and I would say, oh yeah, this elder here knows that, or go ask that elder when somebody come in. And then I would point and I would say, where are those elders? And I saw 3 fingers pointing right back at me. I got that spot. Even though I didn't win it, I had it. And I'm so proud of the fact that my wife gives me my spirit, my strong spirit. And then when I looked at Yokeo has probably married to almost every roundhouse leader around. And Gail and I are carrying on that tradition from Yokeo anyway. We both have 1 son, 3 daughters. We have 14 grandchildren, 7 sons and 7 granddaughters, and 1 great-grandson. So our lives are really healthy and loving. The politics, they can go. But we still try to do our best to keep our family. And we have to keep those families together. When our families separate, because remember, every family has your leaders, your healers, all your knowledge. It's just that they've been broken from you. And the biggest blessing I've ever had was that my parents were alcohol and drug-free cultural leaders. And when I used to complain to them about my aunts and uncles who was drinking all the time, they would go, that's our family. Whether we have to become codependents, we keep them alive. Thank you.
Michelle Davino, Miranda, Zachary Charles, good afternoon. I'm the Cultural Resource Assistant Director for the Shoshone-Paiute Tribes and the Program Director for the Language Program. Just to show my support to my Indigenous brothers and sisters, and that's it.
Hello, my name is Dr. Sam. I'm from Fort Bridgewell, California. I am a cultural committee member. I've been a cultural committee member for a really long time there. I think since 2016. And I've actually learned a lot of stuff through the cultural stuff. And what we do up there is our cultural committee, our cultural committee, they actually go out and they work with the I can't remember what the other thing is called right now, but for the land and everything, and they find like remains, or they find an artifact, or obsidian, whatever, anything, they contact all surrounding tribes. I have a few thoughts of our cultural committee person right now, but I'm not going to share that right now. These are my children. My youngest, my son. I do have a 3rd child. She's just not with me right now. There was an issue there. But I'm trying to relearn the language. I used to know it when I was little, smaller than her, pretty fluent as a child. I said something smarty to my mom when I was about 7. She told me I can't talk to you no more. I think that's why I lost it. But I wasn't raised by my mom. I was raised by my grandma. She was just Shoshone, full blood from the Death Valley tribe down south. A lot of people knew her as a mean lady. I didn't. I know her as like this little, little tiny sweet lady. She's like 5 feet tall. Let's see. I learned a lot of stuff from my dad. I didn't grow up in our reservation. I live there now. I got my dad's house. My dad passed on in 2018. I try to teach my kids everything, like, what I can remember in Paiute. I like to be humorous too. It's funny, there was a story behind that. I brought up bringing a language thing into our tribe. I spoke to all the elders there. They asked me, do I do this to my kids? Do I teach my kids the language of what I know? Yes. And they said, what do you know? What can you tell us that you taught them that they would remember? Bathroom needs. They said, why would you teach them bathroom needs? Like, well, I don't say it at home. It's mainly on the road. But they still learn it. They're like, oh, okay. Somebody else took credit for the idea. So it's like, I like to think about things. Anyways, I'll just stop there for now. I like being here too. This is like a really lovely place to go. I absolutely love it.
Hi, my name is Loretta. I'm with the California Energy Commission. I'm here to listen and learn today as an ally. So thank you for allowing me to speak.
Hi, my name is Jimmy Bakunda. I also work at the California Energy Commission and agree with Sierra. It's an honor to be here and be able to listen and learn all of the stories and knowledge. So thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Chinte Washi Patricia Franklin, Lima Bana Koba. Hello, my name is Patricia Franklin from Above and Beyond Village, also known as Scotts Valley, and Sugar Bowl Rancheria. This is pretty, I'm glad that you guys are all having this, and I wasn't really sure, I guess, what it was. But I have a lot to share. I wish I would have wrote it down beforehand. So for starters, my name, I'm named after my aunt. Her name was Patricia Patricia Frazier. And she was murdered before I was born. On the Round Valley Reservation, and it was a severe domestic violence situation. And I just know that ever since I was a little girl, that was the first thing that I remember my mom always telling me, to never let a man hurt you or do those things because you're named after your Aunt Patsy. And, that's what happened to her. And, I heard that my whole life. And it was really, it didn't really connect with me until my Aunt Bonnie passed away. And she was from Round Valley as well. And I really got to sit down and talk to my cousin, my first cousin, Chris Myers, my Aunt Patsy's son. He was about 10 years old at the time. And he shared with me what happened and how he felt as a young boy, knowing that my aunt was passing away. And back in those days, they didn't really call the cops or, do things like that. And my aunt ended up passing away, and my cousin, because he wasn't able to get to the phone and call his dad, Joe Myers, because he knew Joe would have came and helped the situation and made sure she got the help she needed, that I really just felt for him because it affected his whole life. And at that moment, I could actually feel the hurt, that I didn't get to meet my aunt, and that, our
whole lives were changed. All of us were not getting to know her, and that's not the only thing, though. There's other family ties to our family where people were murdered, and just that alone is just tough. Being a Native person and not letting that be your identity, not letting that be, you're always fighting against that. I think for me, always fighting against that, not letting that be who I am, to be a victim, but to try to fight to make things different for my kids and for my nieces and nephews. One of the stories or part of our history in my family is from my Augustine side. My mom was from Round Valley, but my dad was from Scotts Valley, and my grandma Bessie Augustine was where our lineage was from, and her dad was Robert Augustine, and his dad was Chief Augustine, also known as Shook. And then, as far as we can track it, Pocahontas and Gold Chief. So he was a part of the Bloody Island Massacre, and our family always just had that told to us as well, so I think the impacts of that, it's just been really, really heavy for a lot of us, because I think one thing that I learned along the way is how to harden my heart. Because if I sit here and I open my heart up to it, it's going to be too hurtful. And so when I got to the point of being able to open my heart up to all of these awful things that happened just, to my little family, each thing takes time to process and to just heal. It's a hard thing when those things are brought up and you actually soften your heart, open your heart to that healing. It takes time. And so one of the things I hope that can happen here is that name change, Kelseyville, that it is changed. And I know that that's a process, but it needs to happen. And I was just sitting here remembering how last year at the California Indian Basket Weavers Association that was held here, I was honored to be able to meet with Millie Simon, who's from here, and another elder, and I don't recall her name, but she was the elder that sat with us. She told me something that I'll never forget, and it was because she was from Viejas. And she told me the story of why it's called Viejas, which she said meant old woman, and she said it was because when the army went by, they would always be looking for young women that they could steal and do things, those awful things to them. And so what the tribe did was they would put the old ladies out there, and then they wouldn't, take them. They'd say, oh, don't bother. They would stop old ladies over there, old women. And so that's how they protected their tribe. But it's a sad thing. It's really sad that has to be the case. My cousin was talking to me recently about this creek down here, Kukta Creek it's called. And he said, the reason these creeks are called that is because the army, they would come by and they would just steal our women, and they would call them that. And, that's just awful, and that the name is still that. So I know that there's a move to make these changes for these names, but I would say every creek that has that name, that it needs to be changed, And I have a lot to share. Like I said, I wish I would have. I guess one of the things also is about just how it's been as a Native person, not having access to our traditional foods, to our basketry materials, all of these things. You know, every time I would want to learn to weave a basket, and some of my friends at Hopland, you know, we would go and we'd gather. But you go back the next year, someone bought that land, and it's not, you don't have access anymore. And so, you know, that's always been an issue. And, you know, today I also heard about the tribal nature-based solutions, the land back, and we applied for that grant. But also there is that part in that grant that says you have to have public access. And that's the question that, you know, me and my husband talk about, is like, well, how do you do that? You know, well, why do we have to do that? Those are the things that we shouldn't have to do. You know, the whole reason we're getting this, or putting in for these lands, is because we want to have a place for our people to be able to gather. We want to get it back to its natural state. Those are the things we agree with, but with letting people just come on and have access to our medicines and all of those things, I don't agree with that. But you know what? It's kind of like, here we have also an opportunity for me to be able to gather in the same creek that my grandmother gathered in for her basketry materials. And so, you know, it's a start, but like there's those parts in there that I don't like as well, you know. Because right now I don't have a gathering place to gather. I'm a basket weaver. I don't have a place to gather my baskets. I have to go out of the goodness of the hearts of my friends, my basket weaver friends, to go and gather my basketry materials. And then again, you don't know, is that place going to be available next year? You know, after you took care of it and everything, did the county come down and just mow it down? Those are things that we deal with all the time. So, yeah, I just wanted to share those few things. And then one very important thing is the boarding schools. You know, I when I worked for the Hopland tribe early on, it was like the starting point, I guess, of my healing journey, because I was able to have access to a lot of workshops and things like that for at-risk people, at-risk community, Native community. And at the time, I remember thinking, oh, those poor people, how can we help them? You know, our poor, and we were poor. I didn't even know we were struggling, or I didn't see us like that because it was just normal, you know, to kind of like, you know, alcoholism, all that stuff was normal in my everyday life. So I didn't understand it, that it was, that there was anything wrong with it, I guess, and didn't have an example, I guess, of what normal should be. But going back to that, when I started going and sitting in these circles, sort of like this, I remember the first time I just cried. I couldn't even introduce myself, you know, because there was just so much hurt, so much pain inside that it was like I just opening my mouth, I would just start crying, and it was just waiting to come out, waiting for that healing, I think. But once I did, I took an at-risk youth, because I had to work with at-risk youth, and in that workshop, I just remember seeing my whole family, you know. I seen my brothers, I seen my sisters, I seen myself in that, and it's this dysfunctional model that they had, right? And it was the first time I thought, man, I don't want that to be. And I started to try to understand all of these things and how I could help change those things for my children. But when I was going to those workshops, a lot of the times they talked about boarding schools. And I was like, well, you know, my grandma, she didn't go to boarding school. My family, so that can't be from that. But it was still the same symptoms, right? And so when my Aunt Bonnie passed away, we were going through her things, me and my cousin, and we found my grandma's diploma from Sherman Indian School. And then she told me, look at this, what I found. And then it all came together, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is where this all came from, all this dysfunction, and not understanding how to parent, you know, and things like that, and the love, you know, just the love alone. That affected me in such a way of not, you know, the affection, the hugs, just all that, those things that, like, I know my mom did her best, and she was surviving too, but with the mom who had been through the boarding school and was raised by the boarding school, by people who didn't care, by people who were irritated that they even had to take care of the Native kids. And you know, all of that parenting is what was passed on to my mom. And so I understand it, and I forgive her, and I know that she did her best. You know, there's things that that she did that were, she would always say, well, at least, you know, my kids are all together, you know, things like that. And it was because my grandma, she couldn't afford to take care of all of her children, and they weren't all together, you know. It was just my mom and my Aunt Bonnie that were together, and so that was her thing, you know. She did one step more. That meant so much to her. She had 7 kids, and she was a single mom. She was on welfare, but she kept us all together, and I am thankful for that. You know? I'm close to my siblings because of it. But going back to Native parenting is like, it's just been a blessing, you know, for me. Understanding, talking to my Aunt Marlene and the elders in our tribe about the parenting that happened in their lifetime. What was my grandma Bessie like? What was my grandpa Gene like? And, you know, my Aunt Marlene said, oh, you know, there were the best parents, you know, this is the things they did. And so just being able to learn how to be that, you know, and treat our children like, not where it's like you're there to be seen and not heard, but to understand that these are little people who have a heart, they have a vision, they're little sponges that are looking at you to learn, and all of that has been really, really a blessing. You know, I love my kids so much, and I'm just so thankful for them, and also thankful for the culture, you know. Thankful that, you know, I know Jim's here, but their family has been a blessing to us and our family and our journey of going back to our culture, and you know, I'll always be thankful for that, and understanding, you know, my kids, they were raised in it, and they understand, and I wish those things were for me when I was younger. It's not to say I wasn't raised with my cousins and with my family in Covelo or in Hawthorne. I was raised on Oakland a lot before we moved around a lot, but to actually be involved in the culture, to have people say, this is why we do these things, I think that's so important, because you can dance and you can do these things, but understanding why and all of that is, I think, that was always the missing component that that I recently, you know, within about the last 10 or 12 years, been able to kind of connect, to understand that this is what we need in our community, you know. I was on our tribal council for 16 years for Scotts Valley,
And I understood that at a certain point that it's about the culture, it's about our identity. And so I chose not to do that anymore. I chose to just focus on our culture and teaching my nieces and nephews what I know, and that's what I do right now. And I still promote that, and I'm trying to juggle a lot of things, but it's worth it. And so yeah, so thank you.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Faber. I'm from Rancheria. The dollar, my grandma is Loretta, dollar, her maiden name, dollar, Faber. Jack's, Cordova, and descendant from Cobala and Scotts Valley. This is my sister. And this is the first time I've been here, so I'm just kind of taking it all in. And, so thank you for everybody that actually takes part in all of this for all the tribes. It means a lot. Our tribe's lands, and so I have been on numerous reservations due to it. I really try to help everybody that I can, that I come in contact with that need any kind of assistance. I'm a foster mom, and I do a lot of advocacy, but behind the scenes. And Trina Fitzgerald's one of my good friends. Lori Feather was one of my workers when he was doing TANF, which really helped me out for a lot. I did a lot of parenting classes, which I still rely on. I've been in piano with my own traumas, and I took numerous classes on trauma. And my sister said my mom didn't really show affection, so that almost got passed on. But me and my sister actually broke those chains. So every day, my kids are told they're loved, cared for, and somebody cares for you every day before they walk out the door or when they lay their head down. Because we didn't want that. And I tell them I fight for everything that we have today, whether it be just their voice for them, through schools, through anything, for passing knowledge on, for cultural, for anything, housing. I mean, I help so many people in our community, not looking for brownie points or anything, or I just feel like my tribe would be, should be doing this because so many years, like my sister said, we were homeless, growing up. I know how that is. That's why I try to strive to help anybody that even has a kid or is single, because I've lived that life. I know how to survive through anything, like I always used to tell everybody, we joke around, and I said, I can cook on anything. You throw it to me, I'll do it. I can make something out of it, and that's how my mom was, like we didn't have a lot, but we'd always have dinner, we did have it, just like my tribe, I feel do enough to provide or try to fight for housing for us. And like right now, I've heard they're trying to phase out the long-term housing for our tribe, and which I'm on. And like I told my kids, because I'm a foster mom, I've always wanted to be a partner and be there for my kids and watch them grow up. I didn't want to be doing and be an absent parent, the only parent that kids have. I didn't want to be not there and working a 9 to 5 or not being able to cook them dinner or see them off to school. I didn't want to be a parent. I wanted to see them grow up. Just trying to fight for things so that they can have them, our tribal members can have them. Like I said, my tribal members always told me, I said, I don't work at the tribe. I said, voice your opinion. I said I would try to talk to somebody, you know, like, but everybody knows that I'm not there, but I will bring it up, you know. Like I said, I advocate for a lot of our tribal members, people in our community, non-tribal members, but just to try to keep things going and to keep, maybe somebody else will keep that going, you know. Like I try to tell my kids, we teach you guys so that, you know, you're the next generation, and then you teach the next generation. I said, that's the cycle, you know. But just grateful for everybody here in this facility, you know, and thankful for all the people that traveled in this weather too, and that we all get home safe. Thank you.
I need to stretch my legs. I'm a 15-year, actually 10 years full-time settler in Seacon up the lake, Lucerne, as it's generally known, a romantic English name. When I was born in South Africa, my parents were teaching at a mission station, and one of their students was Nelson Mandela. So 2 steps removed, I bring you some truth and reconciliation, which I'm glad has spread. When I was 10, I lived on a mission station, and there were 3 white families. My father was a headmaster, my mother was also a teacher, the priest and his family, and the farmer who fed everybody. And there were 3 black families. This was just at the time when Afrikanism was rising and apartheid was growing. But when a black teacher came to talk to my dad about business, they wouldn't be taken to the back of the kitchen, they would be taken into the living room and sat down and given tea or a drink. And we learned to speak respectably. They weren't the South African equivalent of N-words, they were respected Mr. So-and-so, Mrs. So-and-so, even if we probably pronounced them wrong. The only time I've ever been in a black person's house in South Africa, and that was living there 30 years, was I visited once for lunch a teacher who lived across the street from us. We served a meal of actually bread and gravy, which is still something in my taste buds. I was in the South African Army, the conscript. When my time was up, when I was in college, I had an assault rifle and 5 rounds of ammunition in my room to defend myself and our community from these terrible blacks. When my time was up, my 4 years was up, I turned in my rifle. And I had a greatcoat I didn't use, and there was a black man working in the gardener. He would have been called a garden boy, of course, and he would have to call me boss, boss, and boss. I gave him my greatcoat, and he gave me the greatest personal honor I've ever received in my life. It turns out, and this is only in retrospect, that he was one of Nelson Mandela's Spear of the Nation warriors. If I'd met him in somewhere in the backwoods, I was under orders to shoot him if he tried to get my weapon. But he took the greatcoat, thanked me, and gave me his salute, Spear of the Nation, Africa. That's the greatest personal honor I've ever had. My brother married an Afrikaner girl. The only Afrikaner's house once in my entire life was my sister's brother's house. So I've been once in a black person's house in South Africa, once in an Afrikaner's house in South Africa. When I came to Lake County, which, wow, it's so like my home territory. We didn't have a lake, we did have the ocean nearby. And I was on the radio, and then I met the first Native Americans, including Jim Brown over there. And the notebook I had is actually a sheet of paper where I recorded how Jim and Clayton taught me how to say properly Hawati, which comes naturally to me because I got Scottish blood and Dutch blood. So here's a sheet of how to pronounce Hawati. And Jim Brown's house is the only Native Americans' house I've ever visited. So I think we need to get together. I've been on the visioning committee in Lake County, and people said, we've finally been invited to the table. We've finally been invited to dance after years and years. And one of them summarized the difference between being invited to the dance as maybe your token Native American or black or African or somebody. But we need to go further. We need to be invited to dance.
Good afternoon, I'm Sergio Rodriguez Murillo. I'm a Deputy Secretary to Minority and Underrepresented Veterans at Calvet. I'm very grateful to be here in person and to experience this here on site, and I hope to not make this my only one. Thank you.
Hello, I'm really happy to be here, and it's so interesting to hear all your stories. My name is Marie Barkowski, and I am the Geographic Manager for the California Advisory Committee on Geographic Names. And we're looking forward to, we have Kelseyville that was on our agenda, March 8th, and there's other name proposals that we're also working on. And the stories that we're hearing, your history, it's very deep, it's very touching. And we're glad to be here, and I'm looking forward to learning even more and hearing all the conversations of your history. So thank you for allowing us to be here.
Hello everyone, my name is Geneva E.B. Thompson. I'm a citizen of the Cherokee Nation, she, her pronouns, and I'm very honored to serve as the Deputy Secretary for Tribal Affairs at the California Natural Resources Agency. And I really want to just, a huge shout out and thank you to Middletown Rancheria for hosting us, and thank you for the Truth and Healing Council for holding this space. This is, I think, the third or fourth council meeting I've been able to attend, and just to echo a lot that's been shared, every time being in one of these spaces and being able to connect and learn it's such an honor, and just really appreciate everyone's time and info shared, and stories and relations shared in these spaces. So thank you for the invitation to have me join. I also just wanted to share a couple of the other hats that I wear at the California Natural Resources Agency in hopes that we can connect and I can try to provide resources or support to your tribal nations. I also serve as the agency's representative, to the Blue Ribbon Committee on the Rehabilitation of Clear Lake, which is a body that was created under law and has representation from the 7 tribes here in the region, as well as local government and academia. And this body is really focused on looking at and identifying research and restoration projects to rehabilitate Clear Lake, the body of water out here. And the committee has really done a lot of exciting work looking at how to protect the chime, which is the Clear Lake hitch, which I know I don't explain to this room, but a very culturally important species. And so we really are all hands on deck to try to identify resources and do everything that we can on the state side to support the chime. Huge appreciation to you, Felipe, for all of your facilitation in that as well. And another hat I wear is the agency's representation on the California Advisory Committee on Geographic Names, and so work very closely with my colleague Marie here, leading the efforts across the state and the implementation of AB 2022 for the renaming of places and features containing the SQ term, the offensive and derogatory SQ term, as well as working closely with communities on renaming places so it reflects the values of communities, and including the Kelseyville proposal that is before the committee today. So just wanted to share. So
please let me know if there's anything we can do to connect and support yours and your tribe's priorities in this space. And then lastly, thank you for bringing up the Tribal Nature-Based Solutions Grant Program. It's a true honor to try to get that grant program off the ground, and we'd really love to connect about the public access piece. And just wanted to iterate for everyone, Native people accessing their ancestral lands and collecting their natural resources is public access. And so let's work, together to identify that and address any concerns that you might have found. Really appreciate, again, for the space and for the time to share. Hold on.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Teddy Simon. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the new and inaugural Director of Tribal Affairs at UC Berkeley, which, much like the state of California, has a really dark and painful history in its treatment of tribal nations. And I really appreciate the point that you made earlier that all of the knowledge and the resources and the wealth that UC Berkeley holds is not UC Berkeley's, but actually the elders. And so my commitment as being the Director of Tribal Affairs is to do everything that I can to return those resources and that knowledge to the people to whom it belongs, including whatever we can do to co-manage, co-steward, and hopefully return UC land back to Indigenous people.
Hi, my name is Jeff Ham. I've had well, first of all, thank you to the council for putting this on, and thank you to Middletown Rancheria for hosting. I have an enormous privilege of working for Indian tribes across California for the last 20 some odd years, helping tribes maintain families and maintain their lands, grow their land bases and economies. And now I have the privilege of working in-house for Great Rancheria. So thank you very much for allowing me to be here, and so very grateful for this.
Hello, good afternoon, my name is Jennifer. I am just happy to attend and very grateful for the space that's been offered and completely respectful of everybody's contribution to this cause.
Thank you. Where does it go? Anybody know?
I got off on a tangent earlier, but regarding my Clover Rancheria family, my grandmother was a Jacks, and her Marie Jacks. My mother's name is Mary Straw, and her mother's name is Marie Jacks, and her mother's name was Lena Jacks. But I just wanted to say that within Big Valley, and I've shared with my sister tribes, my other side of my family's like, I'm here to help. I sit in a leadership role. We have resources, we have connections. However I can help, I'm here.
Tom Huntington from San Francisco. I want to thank Pomo Rancheria for hosting the Council of Truth and Healing, for their stepping forward and gathering the words of the tribes across California. All those tribes who've held meetings already in Riverside, San Francisco, and Tahoe, and the future places that will take place because of the immensity of the importance of the stories of California people emerging and being shared to neighbors near and far. I worked all my life with the Friends of the River and the Environmental Defense Fund in many places I've worked. Rivers and land went through tribal properties, and whether it be Grand Canyon and Havasu, Wallapai, Diné, Hopi, Paiute, Shoshone people, or the Miwoks on the Stanislaus American Tuolumne, or the Klamath with the dam removals. We would wish the success of that. I also work with a group who's interested in the reclaiming of the name on the Mad River by the Miwok tribe to be called the Bottom Rock River. And just a small example. So thank you for letting me participate. Thank you for Christina for inviting me, and what a day it was to hear your story after so many times you're listening to others. Thank you, Carmen, for your opening words and your ever-presence too as well.
I'm a descendant from Middletown Rancheria as well. My family, my mother was the last to be born on that land, so I was raised in her. My grandmother stayed close, and he was a good fighter as well. So, and my name is Miranda. My grandmother would call me Malay. I've said this before. And I've been here before when it was first thought to be open here at the Middletown Rancheria. And I stood with the elders who are now standing behind all of us at the time. And I look forward to seeing those who are still here. And so I'd like to bring this song forward that was taught to me and others who sang at that time. From Bun Lucas, some might know his name, he is. And Randy Canola, is another that I sang. Bev Loretta. And if you know it, please join me.
I think that was everyone, and it's getting a little late and I'm a little hungry, so I think we're gonna break for lunch. We'll give you some time to eat, to visit, and then we'll come back to the circle. I think Chairman is still coming.
Depending on how long that meeting went.
Yeah, so he'll be coming in the afternoon, and we'll come back to the circle. And I know as people were talking, I thought of a few more things too. I'm sure other people did, so we'll continue the discussion for lunch. Thanks everyone.
Oh my gosh. I like woke up. Yeah.
If folks could get seated, we'll get started. I know. So we're gonna, we had kind of testimony in the morning. What we're gonna do now is hear from Middletown Rancheria, from Chairman Simon, and thank you again for hosting us here. It's been a really great day. The food was amazing. I ate way too many mashed potatoes and it was really good. So I'm gonna hand it off to you and we'll hear from Middletown a little bit.
Need the mic. Yeah, I guess I need the mic. Amani, hello. My name is Moke Simon, Tribal Chairman of the Middletown Rancheria. Very happy to be here, happy to host this meeting. I haven't been able to attend any, kind of busy on my schedule and things that I do, but when we had the opportunity or were asked to host it, it was kind of a no-brainer. Now I got no excuse not to show up since it's right here on the res. Today, I not only sat in front of you, but I sat in front of my Aunt Millie Simon, her daughter, Christina, Middletown Rancheria. You know, very passionate. If you heard me speak at any point, very passionate about who we are and the struggles we've gone through. Speaking directly about Middletown, boy, I'm just mad about our, you know, the history that was here in California and everything else, but in a good way to keep on the fight, to be able to bring that to the next generations. We set in our building here today a 30-year anniversary of this business that we have, but this business is a revenue generator for our government. Since this has been created, we've been able to bring a language dictionary back. We've been able to have basket weaving classes. We've been able to make a lot of the history that was disconnected to be brought back for the next generation. So in working with Catherine Callahan, all the stuff's in the books that were here as far as our language goes. The Coatzacoalcos language, which is a mixture of Lake Miwok, Wintun, and Pomo, couldn't be any prouder because those are the legacies. As I just read something that I was handed by Jim Brown. Is Jim still here or did he leave? He just left. So he handed me something that was said in our roundhouse right over across the way. So you see our big new administration building, original roundhouse is right over behind that. It has been closed down for many, many years, but it was very powerful. It was one of the biggest ones in Lake County. My grandfather, who I'm named after, I'm Jose Lester Simon III. I go by Moke. I'm Little Moke because my dad was Big Moke, but Grandpa was Muppy, and it changed from there, and he was very powerful. And you hear these discussions of power and understanding what that meant to our people when in some of the hardest times, it's when an elder is passing or something like that, that some of the most powerful stuff is passed down of who we are as a people and the bloodline that we come from and the power that is derived from that. And so being a leader for the tribe and a warrior in a different way, it's a heavy weight to carry, but it's also a weight that needs to continue to be carried. And I talk about the Simon lineage, but we have many different families here at the Middletown Rancheria. We have the Yees, the Knights, the Riveras, the Nickas, and they're all powered through those lines of thousands of years of ancestry here. But this business has allowed us to move forward and do things that need to be done. But the Middletown Rancheria's existence started on this piece of property in 1906 with the Indian Land Act, where they just wanted the Indians that didn't move after they signed the 1851 treaty, the O and the P Treaty, which was signed 5 miles away from here, right on the Pewter Creek, just below Hidden Valley at the Oleomi Village. of our people in 1851. And so obviously they brought Spanish translators to negotiate with tribal people. It just didn't work. We never left. We never left as a people. We stayed where we were supposed to be throughout the area. And so eventually we were annoying to the people in the non-natives in town. And so we ended up on this 110-acre piece of the Calliomi Ranchos. It is now the Middletown Rancheria. We're down to 80 acres because they put the highway through in the 60s or 70s. They came through and they bought the 20 acres there. Since our existence, we have existed on this 80 acres as a people. When I grew up, there was about five homes on the rancheria that were lived at. Grew up in a different time and an era. We were all we had together. How many folks came out and visited? My Auntie Minnie was always a hard worker in the community. My mother, my father, other members worked in different areas, but we were a different culture at that time than we are right now. And I couldn't be any more thankful for them, what I was able to grow up in. Being a tribal guy, here in Lake County, we have great connections to the other 7 nations that are here, many different family members, and we're all cross-connected, no matter what anyone says. If we look at the base rolls throughout the, here in Lake County, we're all connected. One of those names pops up on every one of our base rolls, and that's just a fact. Even though we've been separated because that's what they wanted to do from the beginning. There weren't different villages, there were just captains for each little family and home that were there. And, they just wanted to separate us. And we continue to do that a little bit today. Maybe someday that'll break through and there'll just be a Lake County tribal nation. I don't know. But, those are thoughts that I have as a leader and to help move forward. We currently have 256 tribal members all over the country. Just got out of a general council meeting. That's why I'm a little late giving some testimony here. But we communicate with all of them. Technology now allows us to do that, but everybody weighs in on the future of the tribe. And, it's a testimony to just adapting to what we have to live in. Because money, housing, all of those things we're forced to do in this world are still new to us. They're still new to what the tribal culture and what came before my Auntie Minnie's time and my grandfather's on how we thrive and we live in this world. And we do walk in 2 worlds. And I was crazy enough to not only walk it as a leader here, but also a leader and be the first Native elected in Lake County's history to the Board of Supervisors. So representing people is sometimes I ask myself, what's wrong with you? You're crazy. You get yelled at all day by everybody. But it's trying to represent and to be seen. And I take that as a huge responsibility. Because when we go through this world and we see things that are happening, you talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, that is a new word. But as we're trained through that, you still see that missing gap of the first indigenous people of this country. And it's a challenge. Everything we do as a people is to be seen, and we're still here. And that's a constant battle. It really is. I go through some of these training, inclusion, everything, not much Native representation. You talk about other things as reparations, other things. The tribal nations that signed away everything, and not in a negotiation, in a forced way, is just, it's a constant challenge. But being seen is the most important thing. And understanding that what we pass down to the next generation so they understand how powerful the blood is that runs through their veins as a tribal person is really important. Because those young ones in this generation are pulled in a million different directions. And something just happened recently with our tribe. We did a housing survey because we're looking to do housing and other things. And we sent it out to the youth, and we had our youth fill it out. and I was surprised on how many of them marked other. And it basically knocked me down. I was like, man, is that a failure on my part as a leader on how we move forward and keep that going? Or is that just something that really reaffirms how important it is to have our traditions brought back to that next generation and take those phones and computers out of their hands and everything they're inundated with? And that's the way I took it. I took it as a wake-up call, and I'm really going to focus the rest of my life on that. Acorn gathering, understanding the hitch, where we should be gathering manzanita berries, all of these other things that our people have done for thousands of years to sustain us. I'm going to bring that back to our people. And matter of fact, next year we'll be doing an Oak Grove right across the street. We bought property. We did a cultural burn this year to get it prepared, and we're going to have a big old acorn gathering celebration over there to bring it back and to get the kids and everybody involved with that and do things the right way. And that's just what's going to happen. We're going to continue doing that. As far as the tribe and the trauma that we've been going through since we were moved off our ancestral land, and it eats me up every day that we are 5 miles away from our original village, one of the oldest ones that we have. Hopefully someday we'll get it back, but we'll never forget where it is and getting that step completed. That would be a legacy thing that I would love to see happen, but we got a lot of work to do and to prepare ourselves for that. But I sat here blessed today with the guidance of my Auntie Minnie and my Uncle Bob, Robert Simon, which are the 2 elders in the Simon clan that help us, kind of navigate through things today. And the reason that I think this is very powerful, I learned something today I didn't know my entire life in my Auntie Minnie's conversation with somebody today. I won't say what it was, but I know where something is now that I never knew about. And it happens. And from my father's standpoint, as he told me the stories that were passed down to him as a father, was the day that you talk about these stories is when you're surrounded by people, your own people, that you love and you know you're safe with. That's when you tell stories. That's when you really pass on those things that are hold close to your heart. And today's that day. It was just storming out there a little bit ago, and the sun will come out, it'll move. And Dad always said, you don't tell your stories unless the weather's right and your heart's right. And, under those words, I always try and walk through that stuff the best way that I can. Because as powerful as we were, if you did something wrong, it could bring sickness to your family, it could bring sickness to others, and you don't want to do those things. And there are a lot of people out there in the world, obviously, that say get over it, move on. Well, we can't until we actually confront the atrocities that have happened to us, the traumas that are still happening to us, and even the training and stuff that were put into us with the colonialism that happened here of, just talking about these things. Money brings problems for tribal people. It brings talk of disenrollment. And we know how much trauma that is, having our land, our stuff taken away, but being taken away from the tribe and the people, that's one more thing that just keeps hammering at us. And it's a lot of force on outside agencies, and I say, other things, but, we as a tribal nation, as tribal people, just need to continue to lean on each other, to learn from each other. And it's not about money, it's about what's in your heart and what's in your family and how you're going to pass those traditions on. And it's hard sometimes. It's really hard, but we got no place to give up. I'm surrounded by powerful people in this room. Christina, Auntie Minnie, everybody, all the agency, all the people that I've worked with, all the tribal people. you can just feel that power that we can all pull off of each other and continue to help move these next 7 generations forward. The Middletown Rancheria is never going anywhere. And we'll continue that bloodline as long as we can. But a big part of that is the education process to understand what was taken from us to bring it back. And starting with the land is the biggest thing. I wish they would make it easier to get land into trust. Somebody wants me to be quiet. But, you know, those things are constant battles that we need to do. When I talk about being a warrior, it's in a different way now. It's a different way that we carry ourselves to continue that fight of our people and to understand how precious the young ones are that we can pass it on to. As I said, Kotzatau, you know, the lake people comes from the Lake Miwok, and Oleomi, the Coyote Place, are always things that we're thinking about as a tribal nation to continue the growth for the next generation. And I ain't gonna do this forever. It's who's taking over. You know, becoming an elder is not just an honor, it's also a responsibility. And I know the Middletown people, since I've lived here my entire life, as my Auntie Minnie, my Uncle Bob, my father, my aunts, my uncles have become elders, they've done a good job of passing that down. And I need to continue on in that direction in all of our families. And I talk about, or we talk about endangered species and other things like that, and it's real, you know, it's real to tribal people too. And you know, when they started with the eradication of the Indian people here, the creation of this country, the Spanish, everybody that we've gone through, some of that stuff's tough to handle because we start to see it. There's bloodlines that the last full bloods of the people that were here and have been here forever, at least for the Middletown, is my Auntie Minnie and my Uncle Bob. You know, so living as a leader and as even a tribal person to understand that the bloodline and the lineage goes down, you know, that genocide that was put upon us, some of us have to live through that and see it happen. And that's as freaking powerful as it can get. And so I myself, like I said, will continue leading, continue to be a voice the best that I know how. And I am not, there are no PhDs, or I don't have any of those things. Everything I learned, I'm always honest about it. If I didn't have sports, I don't know where I would be. And I was pretty darn good at football. So it ended up being my education process, how to be a leader. You don't talk with your mouth, except for now I do. But on the football field, you lead by doing your job, keeping quiet, and getting done what needs to get done. And to be the ass kicker when it's time to be the ass kicker. And to open doors or do jobs that you need to be done when people are at home thinking of themselves, to be that leader of how are we going to survive into the next generations? How are we going to continue that legacy to keep our people going, and not only for Middletown, but every tribal nation that is either working with us together, or people that we know, or families that have been interconnected, and to continue along those roads. Being successful in business is good, but at the end of the day, when they put you back in the ground, to have your name spoken in some of the roundhouses, some of the families that you've been around, that's the testament of a true Indian person as you're moving through life and taking that journey. So, and I didn't think I'd be emotional, but I am up here talking just about all the things that we deal with. And I'm just going back to a more recent memory on racist stuff. You know, we get it all the time, especially being successful in business or anything. But just a couple of years ago, right here in this town, 4 years ago, so there was a change that was made from Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day, and we had a business in town, and we closed the business so our employees could work or enjoy the day with their family, you know. And we come back to open the business to a letter on the door that it's Columbus Day, die all ye Indians, you deserve to die of smallpox. It's not, you know, and it happens all the time in small ways. But sometimes it just hits you in the face, and man, you wish you could find the person who posted that on the door. But looking at all those things and experiences those things, they're challenging, but they're also the testament of how powerful we are. Because just as I read at the California Tribal Nation Summit, it was very clear that we were to be eradicated from the beginning of this state, and other folks that came through, and they couldn't do it, could not do it. Was not a way to do it, because there's no way that you can eradicate us. And we've been here for thousands of years, and we're going to continue that, and we're going to continue telling those stories. There isn't a lady of the lake. From my point, there's a giant that was there, there's the volcano, there's all these things that have happened, and we'll continue telling our story. And hopefully these little ones will do it through digital age and figure things out. But for me, for Middletown Rancheria, for myself as a young man, coming up through everything that I did, I couldn't be more blessed to be a tribal person, a tribal member of the Middletown Rancheria, and to have the Simon name at the end of mine. And it's a gift, obviously, and I know we carry names that weren't ours originally, but the thing I also couldn't be proud of is being called Little Moke, because I hear that everywhere. People laugh, and they, yeah, well, at one time I was down there, but not for a long time. And when I carried the name, when I was lucky enough to be in the NFL, arena football, all these other things I did, that's all I did was carry that name for tribal, because you never ran across much of that. You know, they wanted to put you in a different group or something like that. Nah. You know, the haircut alone should let you know. But when you talk of who I was and how I moved around, it was from a strength of the people behind me and the tribal people that I knew that were always there. I get a chance every day that I leave this reservation. When I come back on it, I'm home. Whether it's driving to Sacramento, going to DC, this isn't our original village, but this is what they gave us, and we made it our home. And every time I cross that line there on Rancheria Road, I'm safe, I'm back. Doesn't matter what happens to me, what's going on in the world. There could be a huge fire, there could be an earthquake, there could be anything, but we're here to take care of our people, and I got that safety net. And I know that that's the most powerful thing that I could have. So for me, all the ancestors that have passed for us, that are up in our cemetery, I want to thank them, because they went through things that I could never imagine, and they kept the bloodline going. And I just, I want to thank them so much. And once again, I want to thank my Auntie Minnie for sitting here. I know my Uncle Bob's at home dealing with, whatever health issues he has. He's not moving around much, but, it's a gift every chance I get to talk with him and any other elders. Sometimes I think it surprises people, but, it's such an honor to speak with an elder and to have that knowledge and to try and carry it on and pass it on to the next ones. And it's not, my name, Moke, is out there a lot, but it ain't about me. It's about seeing the tribal people and the representation. And I know I said I was the first. E.J. Crandall was the second tribal person elected to the Board of Supervisors. And hopefully, as I said, a governor, president, all of those things, I hope those are dreams that as ceilings are broke, that we continue to push for our youth as they move forward their struggles. I don't know how much longer I have, but I will keep talking. No, I just want to say thank you to everybody. This is excellent what the state has stepped up and done, Christina, and everything that's happening. I think getting these things recorded are very important. We got a lot of work to do because when the truth is told, I know that it's shocking for some folks. You know, I hope that there was some testimony yesterday on Bloody Island, the massacre that happened here in Lake County, 2 non-natives killed and over 600 natives killed for that incident. You know, and we need to tell those stories, and it's traumatizing. You know, you can't bring a third or fourth or fifth grade class to talk about the true treatment in eradication that was attempted of our people without trying to set up a way to educate them. We're all working on curriculum, we're all working on these things, and we all do our part to show up when we're asked, but it's a hard reality. It is. The truth is traumatizing to those who do not know it or want to try and confront it. And we got a lot of work to do in that, because I think there's a way to do it, but sometimes you just got to confront it and really be powerful about it, because a lot of it's going on right now about get over it, get past it. That happened a long time ago, and those are unacceptable words. Those are unacceptable, because there is no getting over it until we actually talk about it and we actually confront what this is and what it was to create this country we know, to do these things. And that's going to be hard, but we're all going to be here, at least the folks that are really pushing through this and trying to understand it. And I understand the challenges we have. But there are a lot of good things that I will never trade for. And being a tribal person and born into this earth with that bloodline, couldn't be any prouder. Oh.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chairman. So some people had to go at 4, so it's a time check if you do need to leave. If there are folks who would like to contribute more or say more thoughts, you're welcome to do so at this time. But I also want to be mindful of everyone who's got to bounce. Would you like to say something before you leave?
Thank you. Again, Lori Gonzalez. I'm from Rincon. We are the Payonka-Witcham, people of the West. My reservation is in San Diego. Unfortunately, I have to go. But I just wanted to say that all the sharing that was done today really touched my heart. Survivors, but strong survivors. We talked a lot, I heard a lot about matriarchy. Boy, did I feel it today. Mothers, leaders, who are ensuring that we have a tomorrow, that our children are loved and are nurtured and will be strong leaders themselves. I am so grateful for all the truth that was shared here. You know, it heals you to speak your truth, but your truth heals me. Thank you.
And Carmen, I know you have to leave too. Would you like to say anything?
I can always tell when Christina looks at me that she wants me to say something and I don't know what to say. I'm so hard of hearing, so you want to be careful the way you look at me. Again, I am so humbled to be here. My wonderful friend and attorney, who's so gracious to help me come here. I cannot do that without her help. I'm a retired Marine. I retired in 1974 after 20 years. So everything I do, and this is horrible for me to have to say, is done on my penny. I think it's time people stepped up. You people in Sacramento are saying, we want to co-manage land. We want the indigenous knowledge. I'm not a fan of that word indigenous, and we Indians are buying into it. I truly believe that we need to retain our own identity. I'm a Quimby Indian from San Diego, California. You should identify yourself as to who you are. So, with that said, when we drove through here, I told Courtney, there's something special here. It's a sacred place. And then at lunchtime, Christina tells me you have the hot springs, boiling water coming up out of the earth. It is part of that heartbeat of Mother Earth, the fire within. So I wanted to kind of touch on that because I know you're passionate about your home, your future, as all of us are. But I think these unique places in the world where we have our sacredness, where we go to cleanse ourselves, say our prayers, need to be protected. We need to make these agencies understand the rich people can't continue to get rich off of sucking these elements out of the earth. I hope that makes sense. I won't go any further, but shame on you for asking me if I wanted to say anything. So, it's a wonderful, wonderful privilege. I'm 88, gonna be 89 in August if I'm lucky. Every single day I learn something. The young lady who sings that song touched my soul yesterday. It's a different vibration. We can vocalize all we want, but it's not the same vibration that goes out. So again, I thank you. You keep singing. You've been gifted with that. And anybody else who has those beautiful gifts, please step up to the plate and start sharing. Because it's through that we share together that we can indeed continue to honor our ancestors and who we are as a people. So once more, I'm very humbled. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Safe travels.
I think we're gonna go.
Yeah, I hope to see more rainbows on there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. Would anyone else like to share anything? Okay. Yes.
Hi, I'm Millie Simon. I was born here on the Middletown Rancheria, and I did see a lot of changes. I'll say since I was 5 years old, born in 53 and then 59, I did see a lot of changes on this rancheria. It was tremendous, and I've seen a lot of things change in Middletown as I went along too. But I'm proud to say that's my nephew, my brother's son, Moke. Happy birthday. It was his birthday yesterday, but he's passed. But anyway, this is his son, and I'm very proud that he is the supervisor of Lake County and that he's our chairperson. And my daughter, Christina, the treasurer for the Middletown Rancheria. And I went to Middletown School, and I've never been to a boarding school, but at the time that I went from 1959 to 71, it was like a boarding school to me, right here in Middletown, California. So I didn't have to go to a boarding school to learn how people can be racist and hate. But that's all I really have to say, but I just want to say I'm proud of my nephew. And I sit on the Indian House Board, and I have another member sitting with me over here, Patty Franklin. She's from Scotts Valley, and her friend Jen. We bead together, and she shows me many ways to do it. But my mom's from Wintone, that's from Rumsey. She's a Wintone lady, so that's what I am too. Excuse me, you guys, but having my back to you, but I'm glad you all came, and I can remember this place when all it was manzanita brush everywhere on this land. And we did have an Easter cross on top of the hill where our water tank sits. And I remember my brother Ed making stairways through the side of the mountain. And the Indian ladies did go up there on Easter morning to do their prayer. And they took food up there. But that was when I was little. But yes, we do have a cemetery here that we let our people rest. And yes, thank you. We all should thank our Indian people, thank our ancestors, because they went through a lot of pain in order for us to stand and be where we are today. Every Indian should recognize that, because they went through a lot of pain. But I just want to say that I'm proud this is my home, and I lived here all my life, and I've seen the roads, and I can just remember Luke Simon, my uncle, was the chairperson then, and if the sheriffs came to this right entrance, he would make them take their holster off and hang it on that fence post. And they said, "You can't do that," and he goes, "Well, then don't come in, because my people here do not have a gun." He goes, "You're the only one walking on our land with a gun, so leave it there." And I did see that. And the game warden, they used to bring us deer meat if it was freshly killed, because the game warden would have to kill it, and they would bring the fresh meat out here. And like I said, I just saw a lot of things. We have a little stream coming through our land, and there used to be fish, and we used to play through that. Wintertime and all, we made little boats out of I guess it would be pieces of pine, because they would be like a little boat, and they're light and they float. But I'm just telling you about that's how this place looked. But this here was all manzanita. This here right here was all manzanita before. Oh, and the grape vineyard, my uncle had a grape vineyard, and that's what it was. But I'm just proud to say that this Indian man has led this county, and he's led the reservation, the Rancheria here. And his people his ancestors are very, very proud of him. So that's all I have to say, but thank you guys for coming and looking at our land, and I'll leave you with a Wintone story, how the woodpecker got his red cap. And it's gonna be a quick story. And it's from Wintone, from Rumsey. This man was cutting down a tree, and the woodpecker, he didn't have no red cap at the time, was sitting there. And the guy was cutting the wood, the branches, and then the woodpecker said, "Cochillo, cochillo, cochillo." He goes, "I'm here, don't cut me." And just as when he did that, the man cut his thumb, and the blood dripped, and that's how the woodpecker got his red cap. So.
I'm coming. Thank you. I think that's a good place to end at, unless anyone is wanting to jump in. Anyone? She spoke earlier. She's asking for prayer now. Would you like to say something? Yeah. Would anyone like to offer a prayer? Would you like to offer a prayer?
Our Heavenly Father, thank you for letting us all come together, share our wisdom, share our kindness, and share this land in our thoughts. And thank you, and bless our ancestors, and thank our ancestors for, like I say, for letting us be here and letting us walk on this land and who we are. We praise for the rain. We praise the Jesus for everything that we just walk on by because we don't think it's nothing. But the rain and the wind and the sun, it's him saying, I'm here. Just like us saying, we are still here too. Amen.
Yahweh, thank you all for coming. This has been a very deep conversation for the past 2 days. Really appreciate you all joining us. And I think we're done for today. Yeah. So if any of the council members want to say anything else as we close.
I just wanted to say thank you to Middletown Rancheria Tribe for giving us this space and for your generosity in providing all the food and beverage for us. We really appreciate you enabling us to be here. And to all the people who've offered testimony, I know so much came from the heart and we really appreciate it. And I know that the other members will probably speak, but we will do our best to make sure that what results from all this will be truly reflective of our native voices.
I also want to echo my fellow council members. I want to thank Chairman in Middletown Rancheria for hosting us. I also want to thank Grayton for hosting the other day, and sorry I missed that one. And thank everybody here that's present today, that was present yesterday, that's present virtually, that will see this later and share their testimonies. We are here to listen, and you're entrusting us with those stories, with those legends, as Carmen had said earlier. There's a lot that needs to change. Chairman hit that nail right on the head. It's about having those tough discussions, the realization of what happened, recognizing and talking through it. That's part of the healing. That's only one step. We need to continue to go further and push that envelope. And it's a great day to see folks like Chairman and other tribal leaders that are stepping up and doing their part and making that change and mentoring the youth, the next generation of leaders. So I encourage our youth, wherever they may be, here in person, out virtually, to really sit down with your elders. It's easy to get lost in technology. Technology helps us right now, and it's helping us bring our message out to our tribal communities as a whole, but it's easy for our youth to get lost in those things. It's our elders that hold those stories and traditions, all the culture that was passed down to them. We have to take the time to sit down with them. I just want to thank you again, Chairman, for hosting us. Thank you for all your hard work. Thank you again for Grayton. Please pass that along. Shuru.
Since Isaac was just talking about our youth, it occurred to me that maybe I should do a plug for my institution, because Annette Reed is not here today. I like to joke that she's my boss, but she's the chair of ethnic studies at Sac State. And she spoke a little bit yesterday, so some of you may have already heard of this, but I want to reiterate it for anyone that wasn't there yesterday, that the California Tribal College is coming to Sac State. So we just got a resolution passed through our Senate where we will be in partnership with the California Tribal College. I'm sure some of you are familiar with this. It's struggled a little bit to get off the ground in recent years, right? So they're coming to Sac State. So the students will be Sac State students, but they'll be able to get all their requirements done in a 2-year program there, and they could transfer where they want to transfer or stay at Sac State. So I know that college isn't for everybody. There's different kinds of education out there, you know. We have scholars of all sorts. You're a scholar. We've heard from a lot of people over the past 2 days that are obviously scholars but don't have a particular degree. But having those degrees can be helpful for our tribal nations too, right? It's good to have a few of those folks around to help navigate some of these institutional quagmires, right? To be able to write grants, to be able to do some of the things you need to do. to function in this world, right? To get that the white people education. So if you're thinking about that for your youth, Sac State might be a good place to think about, because we'll have the California Tribal College there. We have a new administration that's really committed to making our campus a place where Native students can feel at home, right? Because I think that's a common challenge our students have had throughout the generations. I know I've heard this from my dad and his sisters. You know, they all kind of started college and then they headed right back home after a year, right? Because it wasn't a welcoming place for them. So we want our campus to be a place that's welcome. That's a welcoming place for Native students where they'll feel at home. They'll be around other Native people. You know, we have 3 California Indian professors there now in the Ethnic Studies department, myself and Ned and Rose. There's a war soldier. We're hiring 2 recruiters that are likely going to be California Indians. We have Marina Horse, who's Pitt River. That's running our Native Student Center that just opened this year. So we've got a lot of forward movement happening on campus. So I thought I would mention that really quick, since Annette was not able to, she wasn't feeling so great today, so she had to head home. And I think she'd probably want me to do that. And then I want to thank our hosts, both today and yesterday, and everybody who spoke. So that's all.
Thank you, council members. Okay, well, just as a reminder, we hope that if you joined us today and you got something out of it, that you continue to join us for these meetings. We meet in different places kind of once a month, and then have quarterly meetings on a quarterly basis. So our next quarterly meeting is May. I am flagging, because Loretta just whispered it to me, that we're rescheduling Santa Ynez because I think we want to accommodate the cultural center opening. So May is TBD on where we'll be, but we'll let you know as soon as we have a location. And our next regional hearing is going to be in Tuolumne, hopefully in April. And so probably Tuolumne. I think they'll be cool with it, but we'll see. And then we'll be kind of up and down the state. So if you grab one of these little maps, it'll show you kind of where we're going. And then you can follow us using the QR code as well. Anything else you want to close with? Great. Well, Yahui, thank you again. It looks like the weather has turned a bit, so we're getting a little bit of sun, so hopefully you all travel safe wherever you're going next. So thank you all. Take care.